I want to offer an alternate explanation for Hasan's waffling. Do you think Hasan was more sharp years ago? Like more quicker-witted, quicker with his words? Do you feel like his English has gotten worse?
No.
Well, we feel differently about that.
Do you think he's going senile or?
No, but I do know that he takes a hair loss medication called finasteride.
You really won't say?
Ethan, point blank, is asking him. What? Hall, you're trolling.
Because he's stammering and he talks like.
You're trolling me.
Whoa!
That's what you said.
Hold on. I don't think.
No, my information. Oh my God.
PSK.
I don't understand the.
Essentially.
I'll never beat the he ran allegations. Here's what I'm gonna say, Anna. You're detracting from this conversation. Okay? I appreciate
detractor.
you.
You can't steelman Hasan into better, more nuanced positions that work for you, right? Anna bringing it up was just valid, and I feel like she gets dismissed so often in debates like this, and it drives me crazy.
NotSoErudite, tell me everything you know about Taiwan.
Tell her that she's detracting now.
It's a relevant description of their current.
Oh Jesus!
Wait. Taiwan.
Taiwan number. What? Sorry. Have you seen those clips? You must have, right?
No. What is that?
Oh shit. There was some guy that used. Do you know PUBG? Do you know that game?
Yes, I've seen the clips, of course. Okay.
Oh,
what do
well,
you know?
how am I supposed to know that? Of course you've seen that.
Because I exist on the fucking internet. I'm in your audience.
I don't know.
I've seen
You
something
used to
that's been on
work
the
at
internet.
random. I don't know what you've seen on the internet. I don't know why you would assume that I know what you've seen on the internet or not.
I've
How
seen
rude.
All right, tell me what you know.
About Taiwan?
Yes.
God
Other
damn.
than that, it's number one.
I truly don't know all about Taiwan. Supposedly, I think a lot of people fought in China a long time ago. A lot of them run away. One of those groups of people, I think, was the people that eventually settled in Taiwan. They consider themselves China, and I think like in letter or in spirit, not necessarily in spirit, but I think they think that technically they are the true China and they encompass all of China, and then the other China thinks they're the true China and they encompass all of China, including Taiwan, and they just kind of exist in this uncomfortable reality where both things can be true at once because of how other countries recognize them, and we're all just kind of like kicking that can down the road until we see what the fuck finally happens. But they've got their, but yeah, that's what I said.
That particular thought is not the prevailing thought. It hasn't been for some time.
Which thought?
So the only reason I'm bringing this up is because I watched your video about Hasan I saw the subreddit post about Hasan weighing in on China and Taiwan, the H3 stuff, and I saw your coverage, and I didn't get from your, well, I shouldn't call it coverage. August was just cutting a clip of you watching some stuff, right? It's probably the best way to understand that. But you know, I didn't get any answers for how anything Hasan said was wrong.
You left, right, get in my zone.
And from my perspective, and I think I know a thing or two about the subject, I don't think he really said much wrong about Taiwan and China at all. To the contrary of what your subreddit was saying.
Yeah, of
your
course.
subreddit was very harsh on him.
No, yeah, I would agree. He probably didn't say much about Taiwan or China because he said almost nothing about Taiwan or China. The correct thing that he probably should have said is, this is probably what I would say if somebody were to push me. Do you have, and I think I have since the best. If somebody pushed me, what do you think should happen with Taiwan or Hong Kong? I think generally what I say is, I don't really know enough about the intricacies of those situations, so I don't really have a strong opinion on it. That's what he should have said, but he couldn't take that position.
I don't agree. I think Hasan said plenty about both, and the things he said were accurate.
Wait, do you want to link and watch this again?
We can.
But I'm curious at what point you thought he said something of like substance with conviction relating to Taiwan, where it didn't just sound like him waffling around because he was scared to take a stance because he'd trigger the audience, but he also wants to maintain his America bad stance at the same time.
So I do think that was his focus. I don't think he did a great justice to the issue or anything.
Okay.
But the things he was saying were not. He knew a lot of the technical things about the issue, and you know. First off, Taiwan and Hong Kong, two very different issues.
Yeah.
I don't even think they're worth comparing.
True.
Right? Like, we shouldn't be, speaking them in the same breath.
Okay.
But,
well, I feel like there is something I do know a little bit more about. I feel like there is meaningful comparison between the two because both have become worldwide respected economic powerhouses that exist in an uncomfortable world right now where it seems like a lot of people are questioning their future. I think that's broadly speaking, yeah.
Yeah, sure. When the two issues converge, there are a lot of places where the two issues converge and have a lot of interplay. For example, like the waning support for reunification under the auspices of like having some PRC oversight in Taiwan, for which there was never a great majority or anything, but it has waned into even like further, extremes or whatever, after seeing China like accelerate their one country, two systems program by like 20 years or so, which, by the way, Hasan did bring up. Although he was soft on that. That's one criticism I get him. He said, "Oh, they just accelerated it by about 20 years or so." He was maybe a little too permissive on that. However, I think like some of the rest of the stuff, he didn't have the most contemporary understanding, but he did say clearly, if the people of Taiwan want independence, I think they should have independence. His understanding of the issue was centered around America sort of having our cake and eating it too, in terms of agreeing to the one China policy, but also having our own interpretation of it, and like sort of respecting Taiwan's de facto status as independent. Selling Taiwan arms and whatnot. That is, I mean, we are double dipping, and it is like a sort of, it's a fair criticism to make about like a lack of sincerity of our international commitments.
Is that a fair criticism to make?
Yeah, I think so.
Is there like a superior alternative right now? That's
no,
like clearly, so how is that a criticism? I mean, I understand that's the world we're in right now because I think we want to enjoy an economic relationship with Taiwan without blatantly angering China. But even I don't know anything about Taiwan, and even I know that, right? That was the whole joke with the who was the CDC guy, or what was the joke with somebody from the WHO was talking to somebody, and somebody mentioned Taiwan being a country, and they're like called disconnected or whatever.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I remember. So the lack of insincerity that you could point out is that like we want to do trade with China, right?
Yep.
So in order to do that, we have to agree to the one China policy.
Sure.
What does the one China policy stipulate?
Isn't that not officially recognizing Taiwan as an independent country?
Or in other words, like recognizing that there is one China, right, and that ROC doesn't really exist.
But we still do trade with them, right?
Well, yeah. Wouldn't you call that double dipping?
Yeah.
So that is the criticism of a sort of lack of sincerity in terms of our international commitments, where we are simultaneously agreeing with the one China policy, but we're also coming up with our own interpretation of it that we know China doesn't like, and that we know China doesn't mean when they're, offering their version of it.
I guess. Okay, sure. It just feels weird to be like, it's hypocritical. It's like, it's not like there's a clear alternative.
I think we should do it. I think we should do what we're doing.
Sure.
I want to be perfectly clear. But it is like an example of us having a sort of mask on or tongue-in-cheek sort of foreign policy. But we kind of agreed with that when we were trading with China under the auspices of exporting democracy, and our sort of trade agreement with China now is more tenuous and is like, the conditions are, it is more uncomfortable than ever before, because China didn't really pose any sort of threat to us, previously over the past couple decades, until more recently economically or militarily or anything like that. And like the room is growing more uncomfortable, but we're also sort of more locked into economic interdependence, right? Between the US and China. They need us and we need them. So, China doesn't want to say anything about the fact, it's uncomfortable for them that we're dealing so directly with China, and the fact that we have a sort of de facto, embassy there. We've got AIT. We're not really supposed to. And we just say it's not an embassy, but it does all the things that an embassy does. American Institute in Taiwan, that's what AIT stands for. So, I mean, like, we do have there's a reason that there was a whole snafu over Trump accepting the call from Tsai Ing-wen, right? The Taiwanese president.
Oh, when he congratulated him, because technically you're not supposed to, whatever, yeah.
Right, we're not supposed to have direct diplomatic ties. And now Nancy Pelosi's going down there and stuff, and we're simultaneously sailing ships, in the Taiwan Strait and stuff. But just, I guess, I think this is going to be a prescient issue, this coming election. Vivek Ramaswamy is talking about it, and he's like saying absurd things, which I'm sure you can articulate without even knowing that much about Taiwan. Have you heard his like Taiwan foreign policy?
Oh no, God, what is it?
It's that we should uphold the TRA, the thing that basically says that we affirm the thing Joe Biden got in a little bit of heat for being very strong-armed, which I really appreciate, about upholding the status quo, right, of current cross-strait relations, that we will uphold the status quo. That's what we support.
Is that like an implicit like call to arms, basically, if China tries to subjugate forcefully Taiwan, or? We
call it strategic ambiguity, and we are saying without saying, and we've demonstrated this by selling a couple of carrier groups between the Clinton administration and Biden.
That if China proper tries to fuck with Taiwan, we're probably going to intervene, right?
Right, but we're not saying that directly.
Sure.
Biden wants to say that directly, and he's had to be curbed short of saying that a couple times.
But that's like the whole international community, China included, understands that to be the case, right?
So that's where things get hairy. Like, it's funny you brought up that Taiwan #1 clip. I remember I was at Evo 2016, the big fighting game tournament.
Cringe. I'm aware of what Evo is. Thank you.
And you know, fighting games, those superior games that only people with the best reflexes and you know intuition and knowledge,
like
and stuff
Super Smash
are
Brothers, the one that kids play.
Yeah, that's why it generates such a young audience, right? It's only the sharpest, quickest witted individuals.
Yeah, that's what I think of when I think of 7-year-olds. Yeah.
Anyway, so you know, like some of the people that I hang out with, we have a suite where we have some international people come, right? And it's like a lot of people from East Asia, like a lot of the Japanese and Koreans and Chinese and Taiwanese and Hong Kong people come and all play in the same room. And normally it's really chill. But there were like a couple of Americans. We you know, Americans come through as well. We do like, you know, some money matches and stuff.
Nice.
But some of the kids that came through were like friends of one of the pro players, and they started. It was like when that Taiwan #1 video was popping off, and they started like yelling that like Taiwan #1, and then they leaned into it, right? And they started like saying shit about you know, it drives Chinese people crazy or whatever. One of the Chinese players just, you know, like stands up and goes, Taiwan is a part of China, because that's what every Chinese person is taught. Every PRC mainland Chinese person is taught that Taiwan is kind of just a state in China, and that it's, you know, they believe that it's de jure a part of the PRC.
Okay.
And then like there started to be like some tension in the room because the Taiwanese players are like sitting right next to them, and then the Hong Kong players are also sitting right there as well. And this guy is just basically affirming, but they know, right? The Taiwanese players know. They're like, there's no point in arguing with this guy. Their whole country is taught that. And the Hong Kong players are like, this was like 2 years into the yellow ribbon demonstrations, right? When China was accelerating the, you know, sort of further encroaching on Hong Kong Parliament.
Shit, yeah.
So they're just like bummed that they fucking spent like thousands of dollars to travel to America to play fucking video games, and now they're you know, right back in this backyard of dealing with this political turmoil, and they just like all got up and left, and it was over that Taiwan #1 thing.
Damn.
So like we're in this weird position, you know, between these three countries where they can sort of I don't know if you knew this, but there were no direct flights between Taiwan and China for about 50 years, I want to say. And then they started up in 2008. You can, as of about 15 years ago, you can fly directly between Taiwan and China. But that's how
like the U.S.
tenuous
and
the
Cuba
relations.
or whatever, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But all the while, people in the PRC are being taught that Taiwan is just part of China. Fuck, where was I going? Oh, yeah, things Hasan said. If you wanted to go through that, I guess I kind of lost the plot a little bit here, getting into the details. A lot of these details are important.
Okay.
I don't know. Can you name some other things that you thought? Oh, you know what? Real quick, I want to offer an alternate explanation for Hasan's waffling, because I don't think it had anything to do with him having a mask on or having like private, you know, feelings or beliefs about the situation.
Okay.
I think Hasan. Let me ask you this: do you think Hasan was more sharp years ago, like more quicker-witted, quicker with his words? Do you feel like his English has gotten worse?
No. Maybe he's gotten a little bit lazier, but I don't think there's like been an actual degradation of language or something, no.
Okay. Well, we feel differently about that.
Do you think he's going senile or?
No, but I do know that he takes a hair loss medication called finasteride.
Okay.
Okay, otherwise known as Propecia.
Okay.
And there's currently something under that's being investigated called PFS, post-finasteride syndrome. And one of the like major things that's reported from people who take this drug for more than a couple of years is like cognitive decline.
No shot. Even if that's true, even if I were to believe what you're saying is that true, the effect size on that has to be minuscule. Like, there's no way that somebody is going from being a political, like a politically adept person to somebody that like is slow in conversation. That would be like a dramatic. If the effect size was that dramatic, I feel like we would see way more people talking about this.
A lot of people are. I mean, you can Google it, maybe in your off time or something, just search like finasteride PFS. And there's contention over whether it's real or not. And all we know right now is that like there's a pretty large pool of people reporting like these symptoms. Among others, it's like loss of libido, but it's also, you know, like shoddy memory and brain fog and things like that. And that it persists indefinitely, you know, even after you stop taking it. Even
Holy
for many
shit.
years.
No shot. Really?
Yeah.
People are risking significant like cognitive impairment to just have some f***ing hair?
Yeah, hair for brains. And I think, I can't remember the drug company. I think it was Merck. They've already paid out like a huge lawsuit for this, all the way back in 2012 or so.
Jesus.
But again,
people in chat are saying it's all bullshit. So a couple.
It could be.
Uh-oh. Who joined?
study are you looking at? Because the one I'm...
Lycan just revealed he's on finasteride.
I am.
I was too, and I started feeling some of those symptoms that are reported, and I reported it, and like that's why I started looking into it.
Well, so what the PubMed one I'm looking at right now, like in the study, it's 100 milligrams of finasteride per kilogram. Like the dose is 1 milligram a day?
I think that's right.
Yeah, so I don't know. That just sounds like they, it's one of those things that like technically a bunch of things are carcinogenic, but you're never exposed to enough levels for it to really actually cause an impact.
No, I'm not here to tell you that it's a real thing. In fact, even I'm skeptical of whether or not it's real. But it's, like people have reported these symptoms enough such that it's under investigation. I understand that like the science takes time.
Well, you know what? I am going to just anytime that I screw up on stream and I say some dumb shit, I'm just like,
it's because I have this beautiful mane.
I'm holding on to this hair for dear life, man. I just want to make it to 40. That's it. Get out there and make some content while I still look okay, and then we'll be good. Then I'll worry about brain power.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Anyway, I'll let you guys get back to Taiwan. Taiwan #1.
That's why I lost the plot earlier. It was the finasteride.
Wait, are you on finasteride too?
I was for about 1.5 years until I started feeling like suffering like brain fog, and I started wondering what the it was, and that's what I went to my doctor, and I started looking into this stuff, and like I've kept up with it a little bit. I haven't done like a bunch of reading, but
Jesus.
I know that Hasan takes this. He's been pretty forward about this. So
yeah, I made fun of that poor black lady for having bad hair. Yeah.
True. Vivek Ramaswamy's idea of foreign policy with Taiwan is that we should uphold the TRA until we get our chip fabs running, and then we should cut them loose.
Oof. Okay.
Well, how do you feel about that?
I feel a little bit bad. That relationship, I understand that there are economic benefits for the relationships that we have, but that sounds a tad too transactional for my tastes.
Are economic benefits the only benefits we enjoy by having such a close relationship with Taiwan?
I mean, the answer, are they the only ones? Obviously not, but I feel like they're probably a significant. Like, my understanding is Taiwan and Hong Kong have become, I understand we're not talking about Hong Kong, but these are like really big superpowers today in like manufacturing, that like most of the computer chips in the world, I think, come out of Hong Kong and shit. But is it the only benefit? No, I'm sure there's some strategic interest in having, well, we don't have military bases in Taiwan, so I don't know. What are the benefits are there? Sell me on it. But aside from like kind of the moral ones, I guess.
I would say that's one of the bigger ones. I've made a lot of Taiwanese friends over the years. You've been to Taiwan, right?
Oh yeah, I have. Yeah. Oh yeah, I went to like Taipei 101 and shit. I'm sure you've been there, right?
I have. My passport says I've never left the United States, Destiny.
Oh, just.
No. A common mantra from people in Taiwan about the partnership with the United States, right, and the fact that we can sort of use it potentially as a staging area, right, if we were to uphold our commitment to, current status quo of cross-strait relations. They describe it as a knife in China's belly. And I think, it's similar to our big interests in the Middle East, right? Or similar to, the reason that we spend as much as we do to have a military presence in South Korea. It's not just for North Korea or Thailand or the Philippines. Okay. Things are heating up around the seas surrounding China, right? And like it's of huge strategic geopolitical interest. These are like massive
could we
advantages
ever
have.
stage anything like out of Taiwan? I feel like at that point we're at like Cuban Missile Crisis levels of military conflict.
Well, if it comes to that, then I mean, think about it. That's one of the reasons China is like not super happy with us. Can you imagine if China had military bases in Canada, Mexico, Cuba?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Wait, hold on. I said this before. We don't have any military bases in Taiwan, right?
No, we don't. They have a lot of our weapons, and potentially, if push came to shove, again, we are committed to opposing a change in the status quo in either direction in the current cross-strait relations. So if China started to attack Taiwan and we were so inclined to defend them, I'm sure Taiwan would be obliged to let us put weapons there, right?
Of course, right, yeah.
At least that's one major advantage we have in being so close to Taiwan. And that this offers us a huge geopolitical advantage in opposing one of our greatest adversaries. Or potential adversaries.
Yeah, potential adversaries. Because we're all chill now, right?
I mean, I feel like you know, the
it
whole
feels
military...
weird, like given the history of the world. Maybe this was more common historically, and I'm just unaware of it. It seems weird to think of China as like our biggest adversary when they're also simultaneously like our biggest trading partner. It's kind of strange.
Yeah, we're in an uncomfortable position.
Yeah.
And I personally believe that China would be quicker to provoke hostilities with the U.S. if they weren't so dependent on us.
I agree.
Whereas we are dependent on China, but we can get labor in plenty of places, and you know, like the labor that China provides to us wouldn't be too hard to set up in other parts of the world. Speaking frankly, so you know, China. That's why China is trying to expand so much into the South China Sea. And even Vivek Ramaswamy comments on this. Like, there are considerations of an access to the world.
Sure. But although to be fair, we shouldn't do anything about the South China Sea. That's why it's called the South China Sea, right? Isn't that what Hasan said?
Well, that's what China wants, is the thing, right?
Oh,
it's
I
funny
thought
because
that's
like
what Hasan said, so my bad.
Oh my god. Is that a thing he said?
Didn't he say that in that conversation? Am I making that up?
Oh, that must have been further into it. So I cut out after they started talking about Ukraine, because I already know how he feels about Ukraine, and I just can't suffer it. You know, maybe there is more to that conversation I need to hear. Christ Almighty. If you're interested, Dylan Burns released a video reacting to the same video, and he nails the dynamics between the U.S., Taiwan, and China in like the first 10 minutes of that video. I would give him an A.
Wow.
I'm really proud. Like, he really understands that issue as much as you could, like through, you know, English or whatever. If you're interested, but it's worth reading up on, because this Vivek guy is saying some silly things and he's picking up steam, and it seems like interest in this topic is growing in a way that it never really did before. I think most people really could not have placed China on a map in the United States.
Probably true,
before
yeah.
recently.
Okay.
All right. Well, I don't want to just sit here and talk at you. I was hoping that you knew a little more about the situation. So.
Well, I mean, I don't know much about the situation. The only criticism, I don't think I had any strong positions on Taiwan or the U.S. I just thought it was funny to watch Hasan waffle like a spineless fuck, which he does anytime there's an uncomfortable topic that should be taking a stronger stance on. But, you know.
He had a strong stance.
Really? What was his stance?
He said clearly, if the people in Taiwan want independence, then they should have independence, and that the United States is lying. That the Convention of Strategic Ambiguity is basically just the United States lying about agreeing to the One China policy, and that we're double dipping.
I feel like we should watch. The.
Pull it up.
Because I thought people in China. I thought he was saying like, oh, it's like one country, two systems, and that's.
He's wrong about that. One country, two systems is China's policy with Hong Kong and Macau, but the One China policy is functionally asking people to understand that, but they don't call that one country, two systems.
Okay.
They don't call their relationship with Taiwan.
Link me the timestamp, guys, and we're gonna start. Okay.
One more thing.
What's up?
Can we? And this is a call to action. DGG. Next year, like it comes around, I think in April or May. Nominate Dylan Burns for the Streamies for politics.
Yeah,
please.
Right. That's a popularity contest.
I know it is. And that's why I want them to be fucking flooded. So at the very least, they can't ignore it. And at the very least, he gets nominated. But the dude for 2 years has been risking his life over there to cover that shit and making great content. And the fact that, and this is not my bias against Hasan, but like the fact that Hasan wins over that with his bullshit lackadaisical content is fucking absurd. I know. Anyway, that's it. All right, bye.
Love you.
All right, you got the link?
Yeah, chat is linking it right now. Right, chat?
Right, chat?
There we go. H3 link. Let me know once you've clicked it.
Yeah, I don't like that.
He said he wants to.
I'm at 50 minutes and 6 seconds.
50 minutes and 6 seconds. Ready? Count us down.
3, 2, 1, go.
Preempt a war against China.
He wants to like fight against China, but he also kind of wants to like leave Taiwan to China. It's like very weird. He has like a very weird foreign policy perspective on it.
Right.
The obviously like xenophobic anti-Chinese perspective is like shared commonly by the entire intelligence community, our State Department. Obviously, it's like American policy.
Pause.
But
do you think it's just xenophobia that powers American anti-Chinese policy? There's no other reason to feel. Oh.
Yeah, I think he's being ridiculous here.
Oh, okay, interesting. Do you think that he's accurately summarized Vivek's position of being like he wants to fight China and leave Taiwan to China at the same time? Do you think that's an accurate summation of what Vivek was saying?
So yeah, I think that is the concern, right? Vivek's whole idea is to uphold the TRA, the Taiwan Relations Act, until we get our own chip fabs up and running, that we're not dependent on Taiwan anymore, and then we're going to cut Taiwan loose and leave them to the wolves.
Okay. Do you recognize that what you just said is way different than what Hasan said? What you just said makes sense. It's cold, but it makes sense, right? We basically want to protect Taiwan until we've duplicated their industries, and then we want to cut them loose. We don't want to fight China and leave Taiwan to China at the same time. That's a retarded way to summarize that, right?
We don't want to fight China and leave Taiwan to China. Sorry, was he saying Vivek's?
That's what I
policy was
assume they're
xenophobic?
talking about, but I could be wrong. We just got into that, but that's what I assume
Okay.
he's talking about. Maybe not, but
Maybe,
okay.
could be.
All
Well,
right.
yeah, I would say that that's probably a mischaracterization of Vivek's policies or whatever they make. But who knows? That's, Vivek's stuff changes as well,
Sure,
by the
probably.
month. So.
Okay.
Commenting on
I'm at
something I haven't heard.
50-31. Are you ready?
Okay. Count us down. Wait, why can't you just stream this to Discord? It's in real
Because
time.
it's on my other computer, so it's...
Loser.
Yeah,
Okay, count
you're
us
right.
down.
3, 2, 1, go.
The whole like leave Taiwan, or first leave Taiwan alone and then give them all guns. Like make Taiwan like America, where every person in Taiwan has a weapon.
How do we feel about Taiwan, Hasan? China or not
Taiwan?
China? Or is it China or not China?
That's the American policy. Whatever the American
your
policy
opinion?
is, whatever the American
What's
perspective
your
is.
opinion? You really won't
Pause.
say?
So Ethan, point blank, is asking him, how do you feel about Taiwan? And he gives this retarded, like, half, like, schoolboy just got caught, like, masturbating in the girls' locker room look of, like, well, that's it, man. You don't think that was a spineless hack answer from Hasan there to answer that way? Or do you think that was, like, a fair answer for him to give?
It is, but I think it's meant to lead into his criticism of U.S. double dipping between one China policy and the TRA.
Oh, okay. That's an incredibly charitable way to look at that, but sure.
Well, let's watch and see what he says.
All right, 50-55. You ready?
Yep.
3, 2, 1, go.
No, I'm saying it's like one country, two systems.
No, it's not. It's two different countries.
Really?
Taiwan and China.
Is that according to American foreign policy?
No, what's your opinion?
See?
Well,
What's your opinion? Taiwan
Hold on.
independent?
My opinion on Taiwan is that Taiwan is the Chinese concept of Taiwan should remain in the hands of the people in Taiwan who
So therefore,
believe,
it's independent.
who for the record, for the most part, just believe to not disrupt the ongoing relations
Pause.
with.
Why are you being?
yeah. Okay.
What's
go
wrong
ahead.
with what he just said?
Can you summarize what he just said?
Yes, he's saying that the current popular support in in Taiwan is preserving the status quo, which is true.
Okay. I feel like what you just said and what he just said were worlds apart.
He's saying it ineloquently, but that's what he's saying.
Okay. Maybe I just have bigger expectations from the largest political streamer on the internet right now. My bad, I guess.
Well, I don't know why. You know the guy.
Okay. Or I don't know. Who knows?
Okay.
But okay.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1, go.
Being so carefully footed around
Because I know that there's going to be a subreddit.
Pause. So it seems like Ethan, his take right now. Now Ethan is politically retarded like I am, so maybe we're both wrong. Ethan feels like he's waffling hard, and now it feels like Hasan is about to give a rationale for why he's waffling hard. How do you factor that into your analysis?
I think he's just bitching about the fact that no matter what he says about the issue, he's like worried about blowback he's going to get from Reddit.
So if he's worried about blowback, doesn't that suggest that he's not dealing with ineloquence, but rather he's being intentionally vague to avoid said blowback?
Maybe. I'm not quite sure. I mean, he
Okay.
reaffirms his position throughout this conversation.
Okay. All right. Where are you at right now? I'm at 51-41.
Yep. Go ahead.
3, 2, 1, go.
There's going to be a subreddit post with like a million fucking comments being like, Hasan wants everyone in Taiwan to be killed because he loves China. He's a Xi Jinping.
That's what I heard.
That's what I just. It's already over. You asked me that question, like in jest, and it's gonna.
No, I
go
was
there.
genuinely curious what you think about it.
I think that
Piker am using a gun.
I think that overall, it's contemporary history is complex. At the end of the day, if the Taiwanese citizens would ever put this up for a vote and we're like, we want to be an independent nation, it's up to them. You know what I
Haven't
mean?
they
You
already
can't.
done that?
No.
There's
There is no.
No, what Hasan said is true from everything I've read.
Pause.
Okay.
Do you think that what he just said there is true?
That true in the fact that he actually believes it?
True in the fact that if Taiwan put it up to a vote, it's up to them if they remain independent or not?
Not remain. They currently cannot declare independence.
Sure. I mean, like if they declare independence, if they put it up to a vote and declared it, do you think that's up to Taiwan?
What he said he would support.
Okay, but that's not really the question, right?
Isn't it?
No, it's not. Do we care? We're not really asking. You tell me maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think anybody's asking, does Taiwan have the vote to fight for Taiwan and declare independence from China? I think the question is should the U.S. support them? That's the question, right?
Well, no. Ethan asked him, how do you feel about Taiwan? And he said, I feel that the people in Taiwan, if it were put up to a vote and they chose independence, that they should be independent.
Okay, I super ultra disagree. This might be my American bias showing, but I don't think no offense, I don't think anybody gives a about just what the people in Taiwan vote for, any more than we give a about just what the people in Ukraine fight for. I think what the world, even more than the United States, I think what the world is asking is if Taiwan declares its independence, is the United States going to support it in its fight against China? I think that's the big question. If somebody asks, like, what's your position on Taiwan? You go, oh, well, they should do what they vote for. Like, what an uninteresting tautological response.
But that's not the question Ethan asked. Ethan asked, how do you feel about them? Are they a country? Or are they part of China?
Okay, I guess I just have a
Listen,
totally.
I agree. If
not
Ethan
only do I have a totally different like interpretation of this conversation, Hasan is being so waffly that he's getting bailed out by the producer guy here after being called out by Ethan for being waffly, and after saying that his reason for being waffly is because he's worried about subreddit posts. So I can read your answer to what he's saying, but it requires such an ungodly amount of charity. I don't know why the fuck I would ever do that, especially to a guy that's supposed to be adept in politics.
I think Hasan is not the best on this issue. I just think that he's been mischaracterized based on the answers he gave for the questions that he was asked. And I think Ethan could have asked, he's the drunken master, right?
Okay.
He should have asked if Taiwan were to declare independence, and they do talk about this further in the video, in the conversation, and China attacked Taiwan, should the U.S. support Taiwan? That's a very specific and different question.
It is, and we'll get there. But keep in mind right now, though, that Hasan's position, and you agreed this was retarded, his position is that U.S. support for Taiwan is basically captured by the ideas of xenophobia, right? That our hatred for China is what motivates our support of Taiwan.
I think they were talking about Ramaswamy. And
really?
I think he was talking about...
Wait, do we need to go back, or do we want to pull chat on that? My understanding, I thought, and I could be wrong, I thought that Hasan was saying that it's largely driven out of xenophobia that the United States...
He said that was the State Department and I think some other institution that was their like primary... That I think Ramaswamy's like idea for how to handle China is driven by the same motivations as the State Department or something like that. And yeah, I think that's silly.
Well, same motivations as the State Department means that then he does believe then that the United States' support for Taiwan. I mean, if we can't talk about our foreign policy perspective through the lens of our State Department, then that would mean that, yeah, he thinks that it's largely born out of xenophobia, right?
Okay, yeah, I think that's ridiculous.
Okay. All right. Okay, we're listening to Dan try to bail him out. I'm at 52:21, okay?
Well, before you start, I think the question I would ask is...
Yeah. Go ahead.
What would be functionally the difference between saying that it's driven by xenophobia and saying that it's driven by an interest in, keeping China geopolitically contained and preserving advantages, strategic military advantages in potential conflict with China? Because
xenophobia is just like a standard copy-paste America bad argument. Fuck, you might even say we're racist after that. I don't know. Like, at least we can give like what you just said presents valid reasons for having geostrategic interest in the area rather than just like, oh, we hate China. Like, one of these answers sounds fucking retarded and the other one sounds like something you might read in a person making an argument for why we ought to have an interest in Taiwan.
I agree the word Hasan is using is silly and soy or whatever, but how do you think Hasan understands xenophobia, if not the terms that I just gave?
I think he understands it as America bad, and that's the extent to 90% of his foreign policy analysis.
A second ago, you were just appealing to him being the premier political yada yada whatever.
I said he was the largest, yes.
Sure.
And I would expect the largest to have a more nuanced foreign policy take than America bad. Or when asked about an
Yeah.
issue as complicated as this, you either go, I don't know, or you...
So
Yeah.
I've heard him talk about Taiwan before, and I've heard
Okay.
him say that our military support to Taiwan is escalation against the PRC, right? Which I think is ridiculous.
Okay.
But I do think that's how he understands the issue, is that basically in pursuing geopolitical strategic advantages, that it is like warmongering or has the effect of warmongering or something like that.
Okay.
Or you know, what is it, saber rattling, right, against the PRC. So when he says xenophobia, that's how I understand him to be using that term, is like, it's just our continued efforts in, you know, poking the dragon, which I don't agree with. I think it's silly, but, you know, there is a perspective where that's not entirely wrong, even if it's the way that
I don't
he's
think
going about
anything
it.
Hasan says is entirely wrong, because he doesn't take a strong enough position on anything to be entirely wrong. He
Yeah,
just takes the
especially on this
coward
issue.
position. Okay, well.
Yeah, whenever he's asked to criticize the PRC, it does sound like he's like having to fucking like scold his favorite child or something like that.
Okay,
But,
that's fine. I agree with what you're saying now, but it sounded like before we started listening to this, it almost sounded like you were saying Hasan had prescient things to say about U.S., China, Taiwan relations, which we haven't gotten to. Although we've
That's
only
not what I
listened to
said
like
at
20
all.
seconds. Okay, that was the impression that I got from you, but we can continue to watch.
Sure. What I said was that like people were criticizing the things that he said on like a technical level or the details, and I didn't think that the details that he brought up were necessarily unfair or like super wrong, as people were saying, or that the things he was saying suggested that he was a tanky, which is my bigger contention, because the things he's saying here don't suggest that he's a tanky, right?
Okay, we'll
Nothing
see.
he's saying here suggests that he wants the PRC to take over Taiwan.
Okay, let's see. Ready? Wait, where
I'm at 52-23.
Okay, hold on.
Most people in Taiwan
Okay, 3, 2, 1, go.
nowadays support just keeping the status quo, like the kind of
But they're
strategic
they're-
ambiguity of
The
what's
overwhelming
going on there.
the overwhelming majority's consensus opinion is that they don't want to disrupt relations with China, and they also, like, obviously if it was a situation between like full-blown independence versus like becoming a Chinese state, like becoming a part of the Chinese state.
do the people of Taiwan like pay taxes in China? Like, do they vote? And
I don't know. I don't know.
Pause.
Okay.
52-55. Notice how Hasan was about to stake out a pretty like strong position. It sounded like he was about to say, if we had to choose between total subjugation of Taiwan versus total independence of Taiwan, we ought to choose one or the other. And then Ethan started asking the question, is Hasan going to go back to that really important flag he was about to place in the ground, or is he going to completely run away from ever declaring that?
So we can go back. I thought he was talking about the support in Taiwan to either be fully independent or to find a way to, because that is an issue in Taiwan, to find a way to reintegrate back into China.
Yeah,
that is
it
an
sounds
issue.
like he was about to like pick a position between which of those two he would prefer.
Yeah.
But do you think he's going to go back to that now that Ethan just bailed him out completely by asking him a much
I
easier
wish he
question?
would. I wish he would.
Okay, well.
But he already said previously, if they held it up to a vote and they chose independence, that he would support independence.
No, he didn't. No one cares about that. I don't know why you're saying that. Nobody cares how Taiwan votes. What everybody cares about is what is the U.S. involvement going to be in the conflict.
But that's not the question Ethan asked him. I
But
don't want to loop on
I
this.
mean, like, that's basically like, if somebody says like, what do you think about like Ukraine fighting Russia? Nobody's really asking you like, does Ukraine have the right to fight Russia? People are usually asking, really what they're getting at is, what do you think about Western support for the conflict?
Okay. I think in the context of asking Hasan how he feels about Taiwan and whether or not it's sovereign, I think that's a valuable and substantive answer for him to say if they vote for independence, they should have independence. That is
That's
actually
the
radical.
weakest. Really? Well, they should get what they vote
Absolutely,
for.
from the PRC perspective.
That we're not the PRC. We're America. If
But
you
if the
vote for it, you
question-
should get it.
The whole reason that Ethan is trying to grill him on this is because Ethan suspects he might be like a pro-PRC guy, and the PRC position is that Taiwan should just be a Chinese state.
I don't think
that
Ethan
Taiwan
even has
should
the
not
depth
get to
of.
choose
I don't think
independence
Ethan is that.
no matter what.
Ethan's not that deep into it. I think Ethan's just trying to find out what he thinks is like the moral right for Taiwan to have. That's what Ethan is just getting at, and I think that's the most normal human. Like, what do you think about Taiwan? Do you think Taiwan should be independent? If your answer to that is, well, if they vote for it, they should get it. That's not an answer.
Are they a country or are they a part of China? That's what he asked.
Yeah, initially, but then he asked if they should have. He was basically getting at, should they have independence or not? Should we protect that?
No, I think you're projecting that onto Ethan.
I
personally.
totally do. You think that Ethan is trying to get into the finer points of how the existence is exactly penned out between Taiwan and China? Do you think 98% of Americans would ask that question? Do you think 98% of Americans are asking, what should U.S. involvement be if there's conflict?
I think 98% of Americans think Taiwan is probably a part of China.
Probably, sure.
Or they think that Taiwan is where they make pad thai.
Sure.
I think that's what 98% of Americans think.
Okay.
I'm going off of the question that was asked Hasan, and I think Ethan's motivations are asking, are you a PRC shill or not? If you were a PRC shill, you would say, no independence for Taiwan. It's a part of China. They're a rogue state, and they need to be absorbed back into China.
Okay, we are worlds apart on this interpretation. We're so worlds apart, but I think your interpretation is delusional. I don't think there's any world where what you're saying makes sense, unless these maybe were like two people that had like elevated foreign policy analysis, and Ethan is like genuinely like, oh, well, I understand. Do you think that before this conversation, do you think Ethan even has a strong understanding of the exact relationship between Taiwan and China, such that he would be curious to ask somebody what he thinks the limit to Taiwan's existence should be?
No, why did he ask the question, is Taiwan a country or not a country? Why was that? Why were those the words he chose in the question?
Because he's probably asking if Taiwan should have a right to quote-unquote independence, meaning the U.S. should support it.
Yeah. Well, that's an extra extrapolation that you're tacking on.
No? Okay. Well, yeah, we're going to loop.
Wait, is it or is it not?
It's implied. Nobody cares if
No, I don't
Taiwan
think it's
declares
implied.
independence. Taiwan can't have independence. It's whether or not the U.S. supports
No.
Taiwan. That's the whole
These
question.
are two separate questions. No, these are two separate questions.
Okay.
The first question is, should China, in an ideal world, would you prefer if China gave Taiwan or didn't give Taiwan a hard time if they declared independence?
Oh, you want to talk about a totally different question? That is a totally different question. Should China proper support Taiwan's vote of independence? That's a completely different question.
If you're asking somebody that you suspect might be a tanky, I think that's a fair question. I think that's actually a valuable question to ask.
Do you think Ethan thinks Hasan is a tanky and he's trying to like divine that with a stealth question? If that was true, let's say that all of that was true.
I think that's the point of the timpani roll.
If that was all true, then why did Ethan specify later, not policy-wise? Like,
if your whole point is that you think Ethan is asking a policy question over whether or not the U.S. should support Taiwan, why would he say not policy-wise?
Because I think he's trying to find out if Hasan, like, earnestly and honestly believes that Taiwan has a right to its independence. Not like would the country of China support Taiwan taking a vote and breaking away officially from the country.
I think he's asking if Hasan would accept if Taiwan, declared independence. If Hasan would consider them independent.
Okay.
Because that's the wording he chose. That's the question he asked.
Oh, okay. I'm at 52, 55.
Fucking
where you at?
retard. Jesus Christ.
I'm so completely I think if we go rewind and we re-listen, I think it's like painfully obvious that what Ethan is asking.
Okay,
and he's not
let's
asking,
rewind and re-listen.
Okay, go back to we're at 52, 55. Okay, 52, 55. I'm gonna go back to 50:05. Okay, my impression overall is that Ethan is trying to find out. I'll give my impression overall, then you can give your impression overall, okay? So it'll be the last one to give it, so it's even the strongest in everybody's mind, okay? My impression overall is that Ethan is trying to figure out, Hasan, do you think Taiwan has like a moral right to their independence, right? Such that like even like the U.S. should support it. Should Taiwan be independent from China? It feels like that's what Ethan is getting at. And then you think that, go ahead.
No, I think that's what Ethan's getting at.
No, that's completely different than what you just said. Before, you said, does Taiwan have a right to vote separately from China, and should China respect that politically?
I said what Ethan is asking him is, how do you consider Taiwan? As a country or as part of the PRC?
I'm not even sure what disagreement is.
How do you personally, Hasan Piker, how do you view Taiwan?
Okay, we can start from 50:05 and go to 50. I don't even know what our disagreement is. I'm not even sure because Hasan doesn't even say personal agreement.
Our disagreement is that you think Ethan is asking a question about U.S. policy.
About U.S. support for Taiwan through the lens of Hasan as a citizen.
Where do you get that from?
I don't know. We'll listen to it again and find out. 50:05.
Where does it say anything remotely close to should the U.S. support Taiwan in a military conflict?
I get that from, I'm pretty sure Hasan says if the Taiwanese vote to be independent, then they should be independent. And Ethan's saying it sounds like you're avoiding answering the question. When theoretically, that would be Hasan answering the question that you think Ethan is asking. But Ethan isn't asking that question. He's asking if they have like a moral right to exist, such that probably the U.S. should support it. So even though Hasan directly answers the question,
over his words.
Okay. Well, it feels to me like, yeah, it feels like Hasan is answering clearly your question, but that answer is not satisfactory to Ethan because that's not actually what Ethan is.
Yeah, they'll go further into it, but Hasan is answering the question that Ethan asked.
Okay. 5005, we'll just run it through to 53, okay? Ready?
Sorry, you said 5005?
Yeah, that's where my link starts, okay? Ready?
Okay, I'm ready. Go ahead.
3, 2, 1, boom.
I don't like that.
He said he wants to preempt a war against China.
He wants to like fight against China, but he also kind of wants to like leave Taiwan to China. It's like very weird. He has like a very weird foreign policy perspective on it.
Right.
The obviously like xenophobic anti-Chinese perspective is like shared commonly by the entire intelligence community, our State Department. Obviously, it's like American policy, but the whole like leave Taiwan or first leave Taiwan alone and then give them all guns. Like make Taiwan like America, where every person in Taiwan has a weapon.
How do we feel about Taiwan, Hasan? China or not
Taiwan?
China? Or is it China or not China?
That's the American policy. Whatever the American policy is, whatever the American perspective is.
What's your opinion? You really won't say?
No, I'm saying it. It's like one country, two systems. You know?
No, it's not. It's two different countries.
Really?
Taiwan and China.
Is that according to American foreign policy?
No, what's your opinion?
Okay, pause. Sorry. So at this point, the question is China or not China? What's your opinion?
I understand that might be like the exact phrase that he's saying, but you are reading the hardcore.
Okay. All right, we got to move on.
Okay, just to be clear, you're reading the hardcore political definitions of like, does Taiwan exist as part of the state of China, like in the technical sense that China sees Taiwan? But I think Ethan is asking like, morally, is Taiwan a part of China, or ought we defend their right to exist? I think 100%. I think every other thing that's being said in this convo, that's what Ethan is getting at. But you're like on this like, oh no, Ethan is actually just asking in a very technical sense from the Chinese foreign policy perspective, do they own the land of Taiwan? I don't agree that that's
no. The disagreement is that you are taking issue with the fact that Hasan has not yet answered a question Ethan has not asked.
Okay, I guess I understand what you're saying, but yeah, it's
China
just,
or not China?
No. I understand what you're saying, but it's just so autistic on such a level that if you're a political commentator, no, you're wrong.
Yes.
If you were to go on stage in the United States of America and ask anybody, should Taiwan be an independent country? 0 out of 100 or 2 out of 100 people in the audience are hearing you say, should Taiwan have a right to vote for independence and China respect that vote? What everybody in the United States of America is hearing you say is, ought American foreign policy be that we guarantee Taiwan's right to exist? That's what we talk about when we talk about Ukraine. We talk about how it might influence foreign Taiwanese policy. Are we talking about whether or not China respects Taiwan's right to exist? Why, when we sail ships in the Southeast fucking Sea or whatever, are we doing it because we want Taiwan to be braver in their vote? No, we're talking about foreign policy intervention in the United States to protect Taiwan.
Do you understand that this is basically the same question of do you agree with the one China policy, which is the primary bargaining chip for doing business in China? This is an extremely relevant question.
Okay, I don't agree that that's what he's asking, but I think we're like worlds.
I don't care if you don't agree. You should read up on it.
No. I don't agree that that's what's being asked, and I don't think Ethan has read up on it, so he can't even possibly ask that question. Like, it's nothing to do with... But
read up on it, and we'll talk about it again.
Okay. Do you think Ethan has?
I think.
Do you think Ethan is familiar with the intricacies of the one China policy, such that he would ask a question like this?
Well, he doesn't even know what Hong Kong is. We find out later in this conversation.
Well then it sounds like everything you just said is meaningless. It sounds like if he has no idea about the one China policy, then his question here probably doesn't have to do with the one China policy. Probably has to do with American intervention.
Well, then what's the most likely reason that Ethan has these questions in the first place?
Probably because he knows that Hasan is like an America L kind of guy, and Hasan's going to have a really hard time answering what America should do in relationship to Taiwan.
The question is, what is the most likely reason Ethan has these questions in the first place? Not why he's asking Hasan.
That's probably the reason why, is because I think they've tangoed in the past over these types of issues and the socialism, blah, 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 and he probably knows that Hasan is going to be a little bit uncomfortable staking out a strong position when it's a pro-America thing that everybody in America seems to support right now, and it's an anti-American thing, which his whole audience supports. That's probably what Ethan sees as the conflict.
Due to a tremendous amount of propaganda from Western media that, like, you have to just say, no, what the Chinese are doing is uniquely evil, uniquely bad. It is akin to the Holocaust, and no one else is doing anything that is anywhere near that at all.
I agree, but I think we're kind of talking in circles, but I feel like socialists are like, no, China's amazing. They're doing so much amazing things.
I can't speak for other.
Xi is handsome. He's strong. He's beautiful. Central casting.
No, there are definitely people that.
That's the vibe I get sometimes when I hear from.
There are definitely people who defend China like you would defend America, like the average MAGA person would defend America. But, you know, that's not exactly a commonplace thing that you can hear. You have to seek that out.
I'm sorry. I'm not sure you're understanding me. Ethan has these strong opinions and these strong questions on Taiwan and China.
I don't think Ethan has a strong opinion on Taiwan. I totally disagree, but okay.
He literally says it's a country, bro.
Yeah, because that's like the broad American position right now. But I don't think Ethan even knows enough about this to have a strong opinion.
Okay, but he has it, right?
Yeah, he has an opinion, but like I said, it's just like how the majority of America right now probably supports Israel, right? But I don't think
you're way too far ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
All I'm trying to do
You're
is
the one that's saying that Ethan is trying to detail the intricacies of the one China policy with Hasan.
Right, and I'm asking you why. I'm asking you where is this information? I'm asking you where do you think this information comes from?
I think it's as simple as Ethan knows that Hasan has a radical left fan base, and we see him fight with him more and more and more, but he knows that this is a really broad popular opinion in the United States, so Hasan's probably going to be pretty uncomfortable giving an answer. I don't think that's that difficult to ascertain, because Hasan has gotten in hot water for exactly these types of things in the past, like Ukraine.
Okay, the question was, Ethan seems to have some knowledge of this stuff, and as well as Hong Kong. Yep, he forgets the name of the city of Hong Kong, right? But he asks questions about Hong Kong, but he seems to have some information about it. How can this be if he hasn't read into it?
Because broadly speaking, these conversations kind of come up now in American foreign policy. Weren't they just before this talking about Vivek's statement on Taiwan?
Yes.
So it sounds like it's just part of kind of like the American vernacular right now in foreign policy.
So he's kind of gleaned these, like the information that he has about this for him to arrive at these positions. He's kind of gleaned it from other conversations, or maybe somebody has just like fed him the information or something, or given him the information to ask Hasan.
Gleaning, this is very surface level gleaning. I don't think Ethan cares about the intricacies of the one China, two system policy.
Exactly. Yes. Which is why I don't think the question he's asking is some roundabout way of asking about U.S. policy on whether or not we're going to invade Taiwan, unless he's gonna, support Taiwan in the event of an invasion. Which is why, if he's going to ask that, he'll ask that verbosely, which I think he does.
Okay, we're looping, but I'm at 51:11. What do you want to be?
We can start here.
Okay, 3, 2, 1,
hey guys.
go. What?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello. Sorry, I paused.
Hello, can I interrupt you for a little bit? I just want to add something as a Ukrainian. Like Destiny, I'm super sleepy and tired, and I have been bombed for 2 days straight, so apologies. But the guy is literally comes off as a like a right winner at this point to me, because how is it leftist to always appeal to Taiwan was part of China. It was part of an empire, so it should kind of remain in that sphere of interest. Ukraine was part of Russia for many, many years, so it should remain under imperialism. So it's only anti-imperialism when it's anti-Western imperialism, I suppose. Everyone else should just f off, I guess, and suck it up and remain under empires. Next thing, he appeals to ethnostates,
well, hold on.
literally.
That has to be addressed.
Her up, WickedSupreme. Let's fucking go.
The first thing has to be addressed.
And then do address it, please.
That's okay. Go point by point.
Well,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
No. Go ahead, Wicked. You got the floor now. Go ahead.
The dynamics between Ukraine and Russia and Taiwan and China are, this is like one major divergence that, like, if according to I think like fairly recent polls in Taiwan, the idea of in some way reintegrating with China is still somewhat popular. I think even has like majority popularity. However, like they'll ask the question of, do you support reunification of China? The people of Taiwan today still have very strong ties. Many of them still have a lot of family back in mainland China. The dream.
Same here.
They're
in Ukraine, exactly the same.
the majority of people in Ukraine have dreams of reintegrating with Russia?
No, not the majority. And I don't know about Taiwan exactly, but we have a lot of connections. Most of Eastern Ukraine has relatives and friends and my family literally lives in Russia. Most of us speak Russian. We have pretty big connections. Yes, it's not the same because Taiwan people are literally ethnic. Yeah, ethnically, Chinese speak the same language and things like that. Ukraine is a bit different. But it's not even about that. It's about the arguments he uses. He constantly appeals to this, that they were part of this empire, Russia or China or whatever the fuck, and they kind of should remain there. He doesn't use the exact same thing when he talks about Western world.
I don't think Hasan argues necessarily that it should remain a part of China. But this is...
he implies it with the language he uses. He say,
No, I think he's describing the political state in
Taiwan.
Oh
my God, you're so... why do you treat him like such a baby?
Because I think he's read into this, and the reason that you disagree so much is because you don't know a thing about Taiwan.
You're so wrong. No, stop. Hold on. His answer is the equivalent of like, what do you think about Jews in Nazi Germany? And the answer is like, well, they've made a lot of camps to store them. And, I mean, like, yeah, they're doing things. Like, that's his answer. And then WickedSupreme's going to well, I think he's just, that is exactly right. Not only that, hold on. And we can watch this video next if you want to. People are linking me videos now saying that 30 days ago, Hasan was saying some weird detention camps in China to Ethan. And that's why Ethan's acting with this now. So that's even further proving my point that he's just an anti-American loser.
Make the rich pay. You would wear that in China. Anyway, shout out Uyghurs, I guess. Hopefully.
Yeah, I do think that they absolutely have and operated re-education camps, which is not great. That's really up. The common but it's as if it's everything that China or any other foreign adversary of the United States does that is like greatly emphasized and hyper focused on as though it's like unique to the country itself. Like, for example, prisons in our foreign adversary nations are called labor camps, even though America objectively has more prisoners per capita than every single one of these countries, including China, or has a way more draconian prison system where there's slavery inside of our prison system that's constitutionally allowed. They'll open up museums, and the New York Times will write an article about how like their museums are engaging in whitewashing their atrocious crimes throughout history. And it's like, well, that's precisely what our museums do.
Can I ask you something? It seems amongst socialists like yourself, there's like I feel like y'all are overly generous to China.
Some people are. I don't think I am. I look at the bad and I look at the good.
I don't know how you think this happens to be the only foreign policy thing that Hasan has read on, but he's the most ineloquent, retarded motherfucker in the world when speaking about it. Bro, is this guy eating finasteride or whatever the breakfast? Like, there's no way that you listen to this guy waffle for 2 minutes and think like, well, no, Steven, I just think he's read a lot into that. He's very educated on the foreign policy. How could you possibly walk away thinking that? Sorry, go ahead.
I don't think he's necessarily very educated. I said that I think he's read up on the topic, and you don't know a thing. Okay, listen. Let me lay out a few things before anyone says anything out. Let me lay out a few things.
Lay it out. Go ahead.
Number one, stop. Anna, stop, please. Okay. Number one, I hate Hasan. I hate him with a burning passion. I hate the out of this guy. I think he's a rich, spoiled bitch, and I think like his entire foreign policy being centered around America. I think he suffers from like the same derangement that a lot of lefties do, where he's still stuck in the Cold War. I have no vested interest in defending the character of this person that I think is a total scumbag. Okay? I came in here because I said people were criticizing the things he said in this video, and I thought that they were technically largely correct. That's what we're talking about. If he said other things that I would disagree with, I don't even doubt that for a minute. I'm sure he has. I've heard him say stupid things about Taiwan and China. We're talking about the technical things he says in this video and their validity.
It's very technical for sure. But what I'm saying is that he covers his ass by saying, well, yeah, Taiwan is, kinda recognized, as by United States as a separate country. But is it really? I mean, why he appeals to those phrases like it was in China for such a long time? Is it really like?
Because
do we know
that's
what
relevant
people want?
to the political status of how people in Taiwan feel. They feel a kinship
Why
with
does
a
it
China
use
that
the
feels
exact same
wait.
way?
If that's true, then you would say that. Hold on. No. Hold on. Okay. Okay. Anna and you can argue this because I can't even believe what you're saying. You're phrasing it in the most incorrect way possible. If somebody were to say, should Crimea go back to Russia? There are two ways that I could answer that. I could go, here's the way that you're pretending like Hasan has answered it. I don't know why you're doing this, right? This is how you're pretending. You're pretending that Hasan is saying, well, due to very complicated issues in the past, the majority of Crimeans are actually ethnically Russians. And I think because of that, they're actually voting for and might support rejoining Russia. That's what you're pretending Hasan said, but that's not what Hasan said. Hasan said the equivalent of, do you think Crimea should go back to Russia? And then somebody going, well, the majority of Crimea are ethnically Russian. That implicate do you understand? Hold on. I'm just trying to understand. WickedSupreme, do you think I just said the same thing there? Or do you think I just said two completely, totally different things?
I think one thing, I think you said them in a way that I'm meant to say that they're the same thing.
No. Okay, never mind. I don't know what that.
The thing is, these are two.
No, they're not the same.
I don't know. I don't know. If you say one thing that's so open-ended, I don't know. Like it seems like you're trying to game me into answering one way or the other.
I'm not gaming you. I'm showing you that the implication between those two statements is worlds apart. I can't believe you don't see that. That's insane to me.
Can you say them again?
In one sentence,
was so open-ended.
Sure. Somebody says, should Crimea go back to Russia? And in one thing, somebody says, well, because of a lot of complicated historical reasons, a lot of the people in Crimea are ethnically Russian, and I think a lot of them would probably vote to go back to Russia because of these historical reasons. That's answer number one. And answer number two, somebody says, should Crimea go back to Russia? And somebody says, well, a lot of them are ethnically Russian. Do you not understand? Do you think the implication between these two answers is the same? Because in my mind, these are exactly opposite. These are totally different things.
Sure. Explain how they're exactly opposite.
In one of these, we're giving an explanation for why a group of people might vote to rejoin a country. And in the second one, we're basically saying like it should go back 100%. It's obvious. Should Crimea go back to Russia? I mean, they're ethnically Russian. Of course they should. But in the first one, we're saying, well, due to complicated historical factors, they might vote that way. But
you're asking me, the second one could have just been a shorthand to imply the first one or something.
I totally disagree. Not only do I disagree, I think it implies the exact opposite. But I think that
it should go back to Russia against the will of the people or something?
That Russia has like a moral right to it because it's so obvious. It's a totally different implication.
It could certainly be used to imply that as well.
No, it would always be used to imply that.
That's what he does, yeah. And also, like this ethno-state, if I can make this point before I off, is that why the fuck does he, as a lord of the lefties, does he appeal to ethnicity all the time? I just don't understand. Not only him, like a lot of people. They're like ethnically Russian, so they should be with Russia.
I don't give a f about the Ukrainian constitution. I don't give a f about the Ukrainian like border sovereignty that some of you dumbasses are f talking about like you're like a 3%er but for Ukraine, okay? It's so stupid. Crimea is not the same as Kiev, however. Crimea is not the same as the rest of Ukraine, however. Eastern Ukrainian territories have a lot of Russian people living in them because Ukraine and just like Crimea and much of the rest of the country was a part of Russia, was a part of the USSR until not that long ago, okay? People's parents were alive back then. So obviously, there's a lot of Russian people living there. So if you have, but like you feeling bad about the Crimean annexation does not change the reality of the Crimean annexation being a completely justifiable act by the Russian government, okay? So that's it. That's fine. And Hitler invaded countries based on Germanic ties at first. Yeah, dude. Talk to me when he's fucking throwing Ukrainians in a fucking... What are you talking about? Talk to me when he's throwing Ukrainians at a concentration camp, okay? Hitler wasn't bad because he decided to invade Austria. He was bad because he was fucking killing Jews, okay? That was the problem. He wasn't like, oh yeah, we're gonna annex territory with like Germanic people in it. That wasn't the main problem with Hitler, I think. That was like maybe 8th down the line. Landslide? Yeah. I would look like Tim Pool after that 49 state landslide L if, you know, there was a bombing, active bombing currently happening on Kiev and like Ukrainians were being murdered.
What, like they're ethnically Chinese, so they're kinda Chinese and should be part of China. I hear that all the time. And it's very confusing. Like far-right people in Ukraine appeal to nationality. to nations, to something that has nothing to do with ethnicity. They say everyone is Ukrainian as long as they, live here, they are born here. But Hasan is fucking more big of a fan of ethnostates than them. Like, why the fuck does it matter? I just
certainly I think
it's about values, about ideology, about we want different things. We want a democracy, same for Taiwan. We want different things. We have different values. We don't want to live like a second-hand fucking citizens under a dictator in our own country. That's not what we want. It has nothing to do with ethnicity. Even if Ukraine was like 50% Russia, or like, I don't know, like 70% Russian ethnically, we still have our right to be a separate country and live with a different type of rules and values. Like, why the a lefty appeals to ethnicity all the time?
I'm sorry. I want to listen, Anna. I'm sorry. I appreciate you. Really, I'm a fan, but this is not the same issue. I don't think this is the same issue. And
but
listen,
he appeals in both cases. In Ukrainian case, he appeals to that. In Crimea case, he appeals to that. In Taiwan case, he appeals to that. I'm not saying Taiwan and China is the same as Russia and Ukraine. 100% not the same.
Okay.
But just
I'm very critical of his position on Ukraine. 100%. I think he's absolutely ridiculous, right? And yeah, I don't know. I think Crimea should remain a part of Ukraine, because we need to uphold an international system and the stability that comes with that. Right, and the fact that it's a matter of contract from the fall of the Soviet Union, right, and that we can't normalize bullies making land grabs, right, imperial land grabs, like the style of World War I or II or something like that. But this is not relevant to the conversation that's being had about Taiwan right now. You can't reconcile. Can't reconcile him saying that Taiwan needs to belong to China because to preserve an ethno-state or something like that, when he just said if the Taiwanese people voted for independence, they should have independence.
Will he say if Crimean people vote for Russia, they should be Russia?
I think that is what he says.
Yes, it's his argument. He says that if the majority of the particular part of the country is ethnically Russian, that they have right to separate. That's his argument. And also he makes those, I'm not saying the situation is the same, but he as a lefty appeals to ethnicity all the time. Why?
I'm not. I have no idea the extent that this is true. I have no idea if this is true.
Okay.
Didn't he literally bring up the Taiwanese ethnicity thing, or am I misremembering
this? Well, that is. But the thing is that's like an actual relevant, description of the Taiwanese political status right now. Like that is a big part of.
Isn't it a relative description of
neither of you
people?
know anything about this issue, and you won't let me explain it.
I'm sorry.
So
Hold on.
I don't even want to talk about it anymore.
To be fair, Wicked, you keep saying that we don't have information. You realize that Hasan has not given any insight into the Taiwanese. Either you don't know anything about Taiwan, or he hasn't said anything that can't be gleaned in 3 sentences about Taiwan. You understand that, right? He doesn't say anything intricate or detailed or showing a detailed understanding of the history. I don't know why you keep saying he's read into this.
Because he can't get 10 words out.
What? You're trolling.
Because he's fucking stammering and he talks like shit.
You're trolling me. It's okay. I understand. I need the Adderall. Can we do? I need drugs for tomorrow. I need drugs for tomorrow.
Interesting if we could actually explore this. I don't know.
No. If you wanted to just Stop. Okay, love you. Hold on. If you wanted to explore this, we can explore this. But you didn't come here to explore this. You came here to say people were having so many unfair criticism of Hasan because Hasan is read into this issue and he really knows what he's talking about. That's what you said.
Hold on. I don't think Hasan is an expert on Taiwan.
You didn't say expert. You said he was read into this issue.
I said he has clearly read somewhat into this issue.
Hold on. That somewhat is that's a 700-pound deadlift.
What do you want to fucking argue about right now? Whether or not what I said about the degree, how much I believed 10 minutes ago about Hasan's depth of knowledge into this topic versus now? You think I misrepresented my belief in how much Hasan knows? Is that what you want to argue about?
No. Hold on. Then I misunderstood. My bad. Because the assumption that I made, based on the words that you said, was it sounded like Hasan was decently studied on this topic. That's when you keep saying he's clearly read into this, that's what I understand. I didn't know that when you said clearly read into this meant that he read 3 sentences about the relationship between Taiwan and China. That was my mistake. I didn't know what read into meant.
Than Ethan, and he knows more than you, right?
I don't know if he knows more than me. I don't know.
I'm sorry. Allow me to amend my statement.
Go ahead.
read a little bit into this.
Okay. When I say he doesn't know more than me, I know like 3 sentences about Taiwan. I don't know fuck all about Taiwan and China. From the sounds of this conversation, it doesn't really sound like Hasan knows much more either. Like, almost everything I know about Taiwan and China came from that WHO meeting where they wouldn't say the name of it, and we have this weird relationship where we kind of trade with them and kind of don't recognize them as blah, blah. That's like all I know about it, and that seems to be about all Hasan knows about it too. Now, maybe he says something more intricate in here that I'm just too uneducated to pick up, but it doesn't sound like he knows much more about it.
Yeah, I think if you had a better understanding of this issue, you would see some of the things he's saying and look past some of the things you're looking for him to say.
Okay, let's get. Have we gotten to those parts yet, or is that coming up?
I think we've gotten to a couple of them. Like the first one was Ethan asking him, "Country or not a country? What do you think?" And you said, "No." He's asking him if we would defend Taiwan in a conflict.
So when he said country or not a country, and Hasan said if they vote for it, they should be. That was Hasan demonstrating his intricate knowledge of Hasan.
Potential invasion.
Right.
Sorry, conversation is about potential invasion of
China. No, that's not the
conversation.
conversation. That wasn't the conversation.
Partially.
Yeah, it gets there.
Well,
maybe
no,
when
no,
it gets there, he'll weigh in on that.
To be clear, that's where the conversation started, didn't it? Didn't it start with Vivek talking about like whether
should we give money and weapons to Taiwan and shit like that? Same conversation.
Yeah. So the first relevant question you would ask from square one is, do you even think Taiwan is its own country, or do you think it's a part of China, country or no country?
And he said, "Oh yeah, a nation-state project," which is literally the commie slang. Commie like a lexicon for saying, yeah, not a real country. I don't know if you know this, but this is literally what Russians call us, Project Ukraine. So yeah, it's just, it's blatantly obvious. He's just dancing around it because he can't say it with his full chest, not to appear, I don't know, maybe to maybe, I don't know, even know like a tanky for full scale. We always talk about like Nazis hiding their power levels. Why the fuck can't commies hide their power levels?
Yeah, I feel like if this was like an equivalent conversation about some far right issue, I feel like all of us would be calling Hasan a Nazi. Like like easiest like conversation topic in the world.
That's why he appeals to the country, to ethnicity all the time.
How can you reconcile that with him saying if they voted for independence, they should be independent?
Because it's a non-answer.
Yes, it doesn't mean anything. Of course, he portrays...
Like, should the Jews in the ghetto, like, have independence? Like, well, I guess if the Jews in the ghettos vote for it, then they can have it. Meanwhile, you pogrom the fuck out of them out of existence, you ship them off into... Like, it's a non-answer. Because, again... Oh, maybe I'm reading too far into it. Or maybe Taiwan has, like, fucking a god-tier military that I'm too retarded to know about. But my understanding about Taiwan independence is everybody looks to the United States for what's going to happen. That was my understanding of it. But I might be fucking retarded. Is that when people talk about Taiwanese independence, WickedSupreme, do you think they're mainly talking about whether or not whether or not Taiwan would just vote to be independent, or?
I think they're talking about. Well, first off, like this is not a question most people would even be able to answer. Listen, I'm just answering the question you gave me, right? So this is already, if you're even asking that question to somebody, you're already in specialized territory. Right.
Wait, if you're asking what should happen with Taiwan, I feel like you just said it yourself earlier that this is becoming a national conversation with the CHIPS Act and everything else. Aren't we all?
I think it's going to become, yes.
So you don't think anybody in the United States of America has an opinion about Taiwan, or whether Taiwan should have American intervention?
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
My read is that most people don't even know what the fuck Taiwan is. I think most people think Taiwan is the same as Thailand until very recently, and I think leading up to this election, more and more people are going to be interested in this, which is why I want you to start reading into it and being more knowledgeable about it, and you are fucking up out of the gate.
What have I said that's wrong? Wait. Hold on. What have I fucked up out of the gate? What have I been wrong about?
Right now, we're having a conversation comparing Crimea to Taiwan.
Okay.
With no interest.
Because it's the same logic he uses in both cases. Exactly the same words, the same logic of ethnicity, the same logic. They're the same country. He literally says they have been part of China longer than they have been an independent state.
But there's a critical divergence between these two issues.
What is the critical divergence?
The critical divergence is that Crimea wasn't its own country.
Hold on. Wait. No, hold on. Even that's not 100% true. Crimea wasn't its own country, but it was an autonomous state. Right?
Yes.
They were semi-autonomous in their voting, and Russia did have basically infinite leases to Sevastopol and bases there. Yes?
Yes.
So is it really, is it, now it's not the same as Taiwan, but there's ethnic ties, there's historical ties. It used to be part of the same fucking country until the Soviet Union dissolved, So like, I feel like we can kind of draw some lines there. It might not be the exact same thing, but when Hasan starts making ethnicity arguments and historical arguments, I feel like you're kind of getting into the same-ish territory. Is that fair?
It's similar. There's parallels, but we're talking about the sovereignty of a de facto nation versus the right for an autonomous region to declare independence.
Okay. And, well, when you say de facto nation,
and to morally justify an invasion from a neighboring country.
Okay. Wait, when you say Taiwan is a de facto nation, what do you mean?
Yes. I mean, they have their own currency. They have all their own government institutions, their own Department of Education, Department of Commerce, their own elections.
Do any of those things?
There's absolutely, hold on, people need to understand this. Like, there's absolutely no integration of the PRC into the Taiwanese government whatsoever.
I mean,
they don't march to the beat of
when
the
you say
PRC's drum
what is
in any sense.
Are you a de facto nation if nobody else in the world recognizes you as such?
But we kind of, that's his criticism about the insincerity of the United States, whatever, right? Like, people do have sort of official dealings, but they're kind of under the table with Taiwan.
Okay, what you just said doesn't make any sense. How do you have official dealings under the table?
You can be a de facto nation if nobody recognizes you as a nation. That's why you're a de facto nation, not a nation.
Okay.
That's what de facto means.
Gotcha, okay. What does it mean to be official but under the table?
It means unofficial, that you operate in all the same capacities as something, but in no official capacity.
Wouldn't that be unofficial?
Okay, you know what?
Okay, sorry.
read the fuck up on Taiwan. We'll talk about this next week.
No, my information. Oh my God.
PSK.
I don't understand you don't need to know anything about Taiwan. That's why Ethan cooked the fuck out of him in this conversation, and Ethan doesn't know anything about Taiwan. But okay.
Even Ethan actually asked a very good question, I think, if I'm not mistaken, in this conversation. He said, like, do you have to be like a like a nation with a long history of being like a separate country to be recognized as sovereign a nation? Which is basically the argument Hasan appeals to all the time. He says, like, they have been in Russian Empire longer than they have been independent. Same thing shit with Taiwan. He would say, literally in this conversation, he would say, like, they have been part of China longer than they have been independent. Why does he say that? He say that to highlight the fact that they're not essentially.
I'll never beat the Iran allegations. Here's what I'm gonna say, Anna, you're detracting from this conversation. Okay, I appreciate you. I have tons of sympathy for the shit that you guys are dealing with right now. But you have absolutely obstructed this conversation, okay? And kept us from learning anything.
You didn't answer anything I asked, by the way. Just saying.
He didn't even want to talk to you.
Really? What didn't I answer? What question did you ask that I didn't answer?
Well, I asked why the he appeals to ethnicity all the time with both.
Hold on, I did answer that. I said I don't know how much that's true. I don't know how much it's true that he thinks that there should be ethno-states. And then I asked, how can you reconcile the fact that he said that if Taiwan declared themselves or voted to be independent, then he would consider them independent. How can you reconcile that?
He doesn't say exactly ethno-state. What he does say, that was a bit of a joke.
How can you reconcile that, Anna? You answer my question.
Because it's a cop-out answer.
How can you reconcile it? He said that's what he believes, that they have the right to declare their own independence.
Hold on, wait, easy, wait, stop. Easiest question in the world. Easiest question in the world. Supreme. If we were talking about Israel-Palestine, and Hasan was reviewing debate of me, and somebody said, do you think Palestine should have, rights to their own land and everything? Do you think that that's an important thing? And I go, well, if Palestine votes for it, sure. Do you think that Hasan do you think anybody in the world would accept that as an answer?
No.
No, hold on. I want to wait for an answer. Would anybody in the world accept that as an answer?
No. For all the reasons that the dynamics between Israel and Palestine are not comparable to China and Taiwan.
Okay.
For the reason that somebody would say, is the one China policy legitimate, which is an extremely valid question, because it's the primary bargaining chip to have official relations with China, right? Is this thing valid that China, the number 2 economy in the world, puts forward as their primary bargaining chip? Is this a legitimate thing? I think that's an extremely valid question.
Okay, I'm so sorry to interrupt. I got really annoyed when you said that Anna was super detracting, because the whole point is that he was making major ethnicity arguments throughout the thing, which is a common line of rhetoric to also justify Crimea being reabsorbed back into Russia. Anna was bringing up a completely salient point.
No,
and I
it's
think,
not.
Yes, it is salient to the conversation about Hasan. You can't steelman Hasan into better, more nuanced positions that work for you, right? Anna bringing it up was just valid, and I feel like she gets dismissed so often in debates like this, and That drives me
Not so erudite. Tell me everything you know about Taiwan.
Tell her that she's detracting now.
That's, oh my God. Yeah, that's
because
relevant.
I'm telling you, there are dynamics that are different between Taiwan and China than there are between.
I understand.
Okay, and where those dynamics are different, like, first off, he already took a position that makes it such that he cannot be making an ethno-state argument.
Can you not interrupt me? Just let me finish this one thing and then answer, please. The empire argument he makes is not that Taiwan or like China should be an ethno-state. He doesn't say an ethno-state or like Russia or Ukraine, whatever. What he does do is he says that if those people are the same peoples, he avoids ethnicity because it does make him sound like a right-winger. But he said the peoples are the same. And he makes that argument that China has a moral right to Taiwan.
He doesn't. If that's true, how can you reconcile when he just said that if they vote for independence,
he would consider them independent? And you interrupted me
You're
again.
asking me the same question I've already answered.
Because you don't hear the answer. I don't make the argument that he makes an ethno-state argument. He says right now, Taiwan should remain like it is. But if China invades, which is exactly like if Russia invades, which it did, as you noticed, where they have the right. United States should not interfere. The West should not interfere. Basically, he says we shouldn't give Taiwan weapons.
He justified Chinese invasion of Taiwan by talking about ethnic Chinese people.
Yes.
Just like Putin justified
No. The problem, Wicked's disagreement is that he's just stating some facts on the ground, but you guys, well, me included, are reading a heavy implication into it that WickedSupreme doesn't agree with.
He makes suggestions with every word he says. It's soft, obviously, but the words, like I said, nation project state. He says it. He says like ethnically they are the same. They have been part of that empire for a long time. Implied, why can't they be again? It's basically the same culture, the same people. He makes those arguments
He hasn't gone so far to imply that yet. You're expecting him to imply that.
Have you not listened other things he said about those subjects? Not just this particular conversation with Ethan, or it's the only thing you know?
You know what? I have a suggestion. Why don't we listen to the video and you can point out the part where he says because they're ethnically Chinese, therefore they should return to China.
My God, he doesn't say this exact phrase. He said if the invasion happens, then you shouldn't.
Okay. I'll settle for that. That's a strong statement.
Well, hold on, wait. Didn't he say verbatim earlier that a lot of Taiwanese people have family ties to China?
I think I said that. We haven't gotten to that in the video.
Oh, okay. Because I thought doesn't Hassan say that? And doesn't that kind of sound like a justification?
He says that in other cases. He says Ukraine has Russian
he says they're Han's Chinese. He says they're Han Chinese.
Yeah, he said they're Han Chinese. Why would he even bring that up if it's not in part of justification?
Because it's a relevant description of their current
Jesus.
Status. He's just trying to describe and educate everyone?
You guys are so busy trying to force this position down his throat, you won't even allow yourself to learn something about the topic.
A new position for him. Hold on. This is the issue that's happening. You're making an argument that Hasan should have made. It's possible that Taiwan and Crimea are different circumstances, and we can grant you that. The issue is that doesn't mean Hasan is making that argument.
Oh God, yes. Your smugness over this issue that you know nothing about. I really hope you come to recognize how I hope you come to feel silly.
No, we're not. You realize no one is talking about any in-depth Taiwanese history. There's nothing here that is beyond the grasp of 2 sentences.
What he says about
no, that's fine. But you keep retreating back to this. You're not educated. We're not talking about anything in depth with Taiwan that can't be gleaned in 3 sentences.
Answer me this.
Right? I don't know why you're acting like we're arguing over
arguments about Ukraine. Okay. Why? Exact same argument.
I'm sorry, what?
Why does he make exact same commie imperialist arguments about Ukraine? Explain me this.
Commie imperial arguments about Ukraine? Because he has an America bad... First off, he has an America bad sense.
That's our whole point. Thank you.
No, well, you asked me the question. It does require some nuance. His position has nuance. I think it's wrong, but it has nuance. His position is that NATO is a Western bully that is forcing Russia into a corner, and that they are rightfully fearing NATO expansion into Russian territory or threatening their sovereignty in some way, right? Or posing a clear and present threat to Russia or something like that. And his support for Crimea and maybe the Donbass is one where he's in support of fucking the right to self-determination of the people who live there.
Isn't that his exact same argument about Taiwan?
in this way, he'd be consistent. But the difference is that the arguments we would have to be inconsistent from his perspective to support both Taiwanese independence and for Crimea to remain part of Ukraine. But the nuances between the dynamics of Ukraine and Russia and Taiwan and China that are different.
Wait, we do understand that it's not about Crimea, right? They're trying to take the whole country right now, and they are fully in opinion that they should take the entirety of Ukraine, that they have rights to it. Same shit basically with Taiwan at this point. It's not just about Crimea. It's not 2014, you know? So yeah, if we were talking about Crimea specifically, you could say there are like, you know, caveats and things like that. So we don't have as Ukrainians rights of self-determination in Hasan's mind, because he doesn't think that the West
he believes the Crimean people do. But he thinks
but not Taiwanese.
No, he does, which is why he said if they put to a vote and voted to be independent, then he would consider them independent.
That's such a non-answer, but you don't agree. So.
I don't. It doesn't matter.
Whatever.
You think
it does, because again, if we were talking about Israel Palestine and somebody was like, "What do you think? Like what do you think should happen with Palestine?" and I would answer, "Well, if Palestine votes to be independent, then Israel should recognize that." Like nobody's talking about that. Everybody's talking about what should the world stance be? Should there be repercussions for Israel?
Okay.
Should there be intervention on behalf of Palestinians? Not like, well, if Palestine votes for their independence, then like they should have it. Like that's not an answer.
Maybe I don't know much about Israel.
If votes to be Ukraine, then they should be Ukraine.
Okay, I get it. You guys think that he's making this argument. I understand that you guys you think he's making this argument. Okay, I understand that you think he's making that argument. What now?
I love you.
Should we watch the video and see what he says?
Sure. Okay.
Can we go back to that?
Yeah, but also I don't want to have like a 3-on-1 conversation.
I'm going to go. Yeah. Bye. Yeah, I'm out. That shit sucks. Bye, everyone.
Before we get back to it, maybe I want to ask, because you've done some reading on Israel-Palestine, and
barely,
and I think you know more than I do about
not much, but go ahead.
So, does Israel have right now to have like official relations with Israel? Does every country need to recognize that Palestine is actually just Israel?
In order to have official relations with Israel, honest to God, I don't even know if like Palestine. I imagine Palestine probably manages its own trade, but I don't know like through are there major ports, for instance, that connect to Palestine that isn't controlled by Israel proper? I don't think there are. I'm not sure. I know that I know that Israel has like military control over a lot of things, which I imagine would also give them control over shipping routes. But I don't know, like in terms of like economic management and like independent trade, I don't know how Palestine manages stuff. I'm not sure.
Is Israel's premier policy governing Israel is Israel's premier policy governing Palestine that Palestine is just Israel?
Yes and no. Like Israel like simultaneously recognizes Palestine, but they're also, I think, simultaneously like settling people all over Palestine, which is kind of like the weird duopoly. Like, so that's like a lot of the West Bank issues have to do with like this is Palestine, but there are a ton of Jewish people that are now settling parts of Palestine. There's like the fighting over the settlements, right?
Okay, so the entirety of Palestine right now, Israel claims as part of Israel. Is that the idea?
I think they like control it militarily and tax it, but they live like in a weird duo thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, do we understand that that's the policy of the PRC? That they are demanding that everybody considers Taiwan to be a part of China?
Okay.
So if it were the case that in order to have official dealings with Israel, like every country had to recognize the entirety of Palestine, which I'm not sure if is Palestine even like a country per se, or is Palestine like an ethnic region that sort of flows between between
I don't know
different
I know that if you look on Google Maps, it doesn't show. I don't think it shows it was a country.
Yeah,
I don't know if
part of Palestine was in like the Kingdom of Jordan or something like that.
I don't know if anybody recognizes. I'm sure there might be some Arab states that recognize Palestine as an independent country, but I'm pretty sure there's a lot of parts, especially like in the West Bank, that are Palestine, but they're like settled exclusively by Jewish people. So it's like very, very, very complicated. People are saying 138 out of 193 UN countries recognize Palestine, but I don't know what that recognition means because.
Okay, but the question is about is another country claiming Palestine, right?
I don't think so.
That's the issue with PRC and Taiwan.
I'm sorry. Wait, when you say another country, you mean do they have their own like running governments?
No, is another country claiming Palestine, right?
Oh,
the
like
way that
Israel?
The PRC
You're asking if
is
Israel
claiming Taiwan.
Not in the same way. No, I don't think so.
So do you see how like, I can't stress this enough. Like the premier policy that the PRC has governing Taiwan is that Taiwan is a part of the PRC.
Listen, I understand what you're saying, but like the debate tactic that you're employing right now is to try to quiz me infinitely on like the differences between these two situations, show some shortcoming of knowledge, and then say that, well, now you can't have an opinion on anything. Like, I don't know if you understand. Hold on. Nothing that Hasan is talking about here is deep knowledge of Taiwanese-Chinese relations. Everything that's being asked here, I could literally know absolutely nothing. They could be talking about
knowledge that not even you have, which is why you're having a hard time understanding this.
You just repeated the same debate tactic. Do you understand? Because you can't engage with anything I'm saying.
Okay.
You can say that over and over again if you want.
I can't even believe you're going here.
No, this is literally what you're doing. You can't engage with the argument. So you said, I think, like 15 times. Like, what can we not engage with? That Taiwan and China have a disagreement on who owns the Taiwan? Like,
on who owns Taiwan?
Yeah. Yes. I'm sorry. Or maybe our understandings of what like academic scholarship are wildly different. That's not a hyper nuanced, insanely difficult to understand take that I need to go and spend 2 weeks of research on to come back and understand that Hasan is being a waffly f***. Hasan could literally be talking about a country that I've never heard of in my entire life, and I could hear this conversation and go, wow, it seems like Hasan really doesn't want to take a strong position on this, even without knowing a single thing about what's being talked about, which is exactly how Ethan felt, which is why Ethan said verbatim, wow, it sounds like you don't want to take a strong position on this.
Understand? But right now there's contention over whether or not it's a relevant question to ask whether or not Taiwan should be considered its own country. And for Hasan to say, if they have political will and it came down to a vote and they voted to be independent, I think they should be considered independent. I don't think that that's useless. I don't think that that's throwaway. I think that's a much stronger affirmation to Taiwan independence than even the United States makes. What do you think about that?
No, I think that's a meaningless affirmation that allows you to simultaneously look good to the
we
public
literally
while looking
have
at your
policy
tank
called the Taiwan Relations Act that says that we oppose any change in the status quo on either side. Meaning, if Taiwan were to declare independence, we would oppose that.
Okay.
Do you understand how Hasan's commitment to an independent Taiwan is now stronger than the official policy of the United States?
No. Now you can answer me this question because I don't know, but I'm about to make a guess, and maybe I'm fucking retarded, and you can tell me I'm wrong, and now I truly don't know anything about Taiwan. My guess is going to be, though, this is my guess without even knowing anything about what you just talked about. My guess is that policy that you just said by the United States, do you think there's a heavy implication in that policy that if China tries to take over Taiwan, that we would militarily intervene?
I'm sorry. One more time.
That position that you just said the United States has, does that position heavily imply that the United States would engage in military intervention if China tried to take over Taiwan?
It does, yes.
Hold on. Do you think...
But...
No. Do you think Hasan's position that if Taiwan votes to be independent, they should... Do you think that commits him to military intervention if China invades Taiwan?
Yeah. And that is a following question.
Answer the question. You said, yeah. Does that commit him to that position?
Does it commit him to the position of... I'm sorry.
If Hasan says if Taiwan votes to be independent, should they be independent? Does that commit him to the position that the United States ought to militarily intervene if China doesn't respect that independence?
Only in the case that China actually invades.
So you think that when Hasan says that, he's implying that the U.S. ought to ensure Taiwan's independence by military intervention? You think Hasan would commit to that position?
No, he would probably find a way to pussy around it.
Okay, then that means that what you just said, maybe you're not educated enough on any of this because you just implied that Hasan had a stronger position than the United States of America, and based on what you just told me, he doesn't. So I don't even know what the fuck you just said. We can replay this whole conversation if you don't understand any part of that, but go ahead.
So the thing I wanted to add earlier is that part of the TRA is that the U.S. would also oppose the ROC overtaking the PRC.
Wow. Cool. So we oppose Taiwan invading and capturing mainland China. Okay.
Okay, yeah. That's a big deal because we used to support that.
Okay. Is that something that the world is looking to right now, that Taiwan might invade and take over mainland China?
These are details that you have to understand.
Sorry, how is that detail relevant to any part of the conversation that we just had? Can you tell me? I don't understand.
Because the point is that the United States, we have it, it's part of our official policy that even we wouldn't support an independent Taiwan, which is why people have to come up and bitch slap Biden when he starts talking about Taiwan like it's its own country.
Hold on. When people say we wouldn't support an independent Taiwan, what do you think they mean What do you think they mean when they say that?
They mean we are committed. We have official policy that is committed to preserving the current status quo of cross-strait relations.
You know that the United States does support an independent Taiwan, right? You can't be this politically naive.
De facto, no.
No, de jure or whatever. Relations. No, they would, no. The United States supports an independent Taiwan. The reason why we don't is because we know that it would piss China off in terms of economic.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, hold on. So don't say the United States by policy, blah, 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 blah. The only reason we do that is because we're navigating politically an area that we can't take a clear stance in. Okay, sure. But, okay.
So that means that this policy is as much to affirm our support for Taiwan as it is to placate China and have our cake and eat it too in terms of the one China policy.
Sure, I agree. But I don't know what you said earlier about a really important factoid to know is that the United States in the 1950s also supported Taiwan invading mainland China.
Because that's the other half of the TRA.
Oh, is that even in effect today? Or I don't know why that. I don't think that matters, but I might just be retarded. But maybe that is a legitimate concern that Taiwan has built up such a military presence, or Taiwan has the ability to invade mainland China to take them over. That China's worried about that, and China is actually looking to the United States to guarantee their sovereignty, so that if Taiwan invades, we would help on behalf of China. I guess from the invading Taiwanese army. I guess. I don't know how that ropes into any part of our conversation here,
but my statement is that Hasan. The thing that Hasan is saying about if Taiwan had this vote, I would respect their vote, is something that you can't say in like that U.S. politicians don't say, right? Because we don't officially support that.
But that's because Hasan has a position that U.S. politicians don't. And that's that Hasan thinks that the only reason why we support Taiwan is because we hate China. That's Hasan's position.
Well, I don't know if that's the breadth of his position.
Hold on.
It might
he
be.
explicitly said earlier that the U.S. State Department and our intelligence agency's support for Taiwan is born out of xenophobia. Do you remember him explicitly saying that earlier?
I think those were my words, the born out of xenophobia. I remember him using the term xenophobia.
I think he used xenophobia, intelligence departments, and
State Department. This is an argument you need to have with Hasan. If you want to ask Hasan, what are all the dynamics that cause us to support Taiwan right now in the way that we do and not just purchase wholesale the one China policy? That's a conversation you would have to have.
I don't need to. He explicitly said that. He already said that explicitly in his conversation with Ethan. He said that word for word. But we can keep listening if you want.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. At this point, I can't even get you to concede that when Ethan asks, is Taiwan a country or not a country? And Hasan says if they have political will of being their own country, then I would respect them being a country. That you think that is loading a question about Hasan making a statement about U.S. intervention, which he doesn't seem to have made a statement.
Ethan wants him to make a statement about intervention, and he's avoiding it because as much as
where do you get that from? When he says Taiwan,
it's just
country,
painfully obvious to like Anna nailed it when she said the reason why Hasan is doing that is because it allows him to maintain his takey fans while not giving an obviously politically unpopular answer. It's very simple. That's exactly why he does that. How do you feel?
True.
No, it's absolutely true. He's danced this line in the past.
That could be true. I don't know what to say. Like, I came here to discuss the things that he said in this video and their accuracy. Right?
Okay.
If you were to show me other clips where he's like, yeah, you know what, PRC should totally take China.
No, he's not going to say. He's not going to say that.
I'm sorry, PRC should take Taiwan. Well, where are you getting the idea that he wants the PRC to take Taiwan then?
Because in my opinion, there's two options, I think, okay? And I could be wrong because I'm uneducated and you're the master here, okay? But it seems to me like the options are either one, China takes Taiwan, or two, the United States of America ensures Taiwan's independence. Whether or not Taiwan votes for their independence, the only reason that matters is because it dictates what America's next step will be. Do we let China have it, or do we ensure that Taiwan has their independence? That's the only thing that really matters. From what I see, but I could be wrong.
So there are two relevant questions. Like, if you were to ask Ethan, or if I were to ask you, if Taiwan proclaimed independence, do you think China should just leave them alone?
You're asking me if Taiwan declares independence, should China leave them alone?
Should China commit to an invasion, which, by the way, would basically have to be a bombardment by artillery?
Are you asking me, when you ask me that question, are you asking me personally, or do you want it from the perspective of the U.S., Taiwan, or China?
What's your opinion?
My opinion personally is they should let Taiwan be an independent nation. It benefits the entire world. It probably maintains good relations between China and everybody else. A war against Taiwan would probably be disastrous for everybody involved. There's not even a guarantee necessarily that China could defeat Taiwan with foreign intervention and help, which we've shown we're willing to do with Ukraine. So, like, broadly speaking, I think probably they should just let him go. That would be my guess. Now, I don't know what the implications would be for a place like, for instance, like Hong Kong or other places in China. I'm not sure. Now, I know that Hong Kong and Taiwan are different. Before you jump down my throat, I know that the existence of those two places are different with respect to China, but that would be my guess. I would say China should probably let him go.
Okay.
Or try to negotiate something more extended.
My second question is, what if that's Hasan's exact position?
What if that's Hasan's exact position? I still think it's kind of a
okay. If
Weasley,
that was his
I think
exact
that's a
position,
Weasley, because
wouldn't that make his comment about independence like a lot more defanged?
No, because that's not really what we're talking about. We're never gonna get. Yeah, I'm sorry. If somebody's talking, we're not only never gonna. I think you're very wrong. Like if somebody's talking about Taiwan's independence, I don't think they're talking about what should China do. Like if we're talking about Ukraine's independence, I don't think Russia should invade. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about what is the U.S. and the West going to do when they do invade, right? Well, and I think the same question exists with Taiwan. Sorry, go ahead.
We haven't gotten there yet, but maybe they will in the video.
Okay, maybe they will. Ooh, and you've watched and you remember, so okay.
Yeah.
Because it seemed like earlier, Hasan was making fun of arming Taiwan. They want to give them all guns like Americans.
Yeah. It seems like he was making fun of the idea of giving them guns and leaving them alone, which would actually suggest that he does support us, like, intervening militarily. But he didn't really say.
Oh, okay. Maybe he says that later, and I missed that part of the convo. So, and you listened to it. So, okay, let's go ahead.
That would make you seem awfully ridiculous for the past fucking hour of conversation.
No, it would make Hasan seem retarded for not just instantly offering that up as an answer instead of being like pinned into it after 20 minutes of awkward wrestling where everybody knows he looks bad and Ethan is literally playing a joke sound effect in the background. The timpani's rolling because he knows Hasan won't take a position on this because he wants to simultaneously remain politically popular but look good in the eyes of his tanky audience. That's exactly what's happening. Just that. Why do you think Ethan's playing the sound?
Okay, I think the whole reason Ethan brought this up is because he thought that it would fucking cause some contention among the subreddit or something, or
why would it cause? Why would it cause contention?
The whole show is memes.
No. Why would it cause contention if Hasan is just going to own it and go like, oh no, we should assist Taiwan in any way possible? Why would he roll the activities?
Because he doesn't know what Hasan. Maybe he doesn't actually know what Hasan is going to say.
He had the sound effect prepared for it, and he just happened to get really fucking lucky, and Hasan waffled for 2 minutes while he was playing the sound effect.
Yeah, but during his waffling, like I said, he hasn't really even said anything that was technically wrong.
Hold on. Okay. No. Because we're not having a conversation about what's technically wrong. If somebody says, what should we do with
because that's the conversation I came here to have, and that's what I said when I entered this call.
Okay, then what you should have said is, hey, Destiny, you don't know fuck all about Taiwan. And you're like, that's probably true. Like, let me talk to you about some things because I know a lot about Taiwan, and I know you know a lot about Taiwan. I respect your opinion about Taiwan. I said, okay, cool, educate me. That's not what you came in here for. You came in here to explicitly defend Hasan's 55 IQ takes on his inability to have a solid position on this issue. That's what you came in here for. When you're having and you have to acknowledge this, when you're having a broad political conversation about international affairs, nobody gives a fuck about you being technically correct. They want you to offer up a macro broad opinion on what ought to be the case in a thing. Like if somebody says like, what should we do about the Jews in Nazi Germany? You're like, I don't know, they'll all be dead in 2 years. I'm technically correct, but what the kind of answer is that? Technically correct is not what we're looking for. We're looking for qualitatively correct. We're looking for politically astute.
Again,
we're looking for
analysis.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Sure. When I came in here, I said I watched your reaction to this video and that you didn't have anything to say about Taiwan. So I wanted to know what your knowledge was, and that I saw a lot of criticism about the things Hasan said in this video. Okay. And the specific criticisms I didn't see reflected in what Hasan said. And now we're at the point, listen, my perspective, you have read so much into this and forced so many opinions down his throat that I think are contradicted by his words. The first is that he's talking about this plan to just give Taiwan guns and go away as if it's ridiculous. What does that suggest?
It suggests that he thinks Americans and their Second Amendment rights are retarded because that's Hasan's position. He wants to make fun of Vivek.
That could be.
That's exactly what it is. Do you think he's using that as to say like, oh, well, just giving them weapons is silly. We should obviously do full military support. You think that's what he's implying?
I don't know. It could be. We would have to wait until he actually weighs in on that, right? They haven't even touched on that. You think that he has so far, but they haven't.
There's a million comparisons that he could have made to say that just giving them small arms fire and abandoning them
they haven't
would be
gone
stupid.
there yet. They
No, I'm saying with the earlier comparison, the earlier comparison he made was an America bad, Second Amendment fat losers are retarded. That's the joke that he went to. That didn't sound like him saying like it would be ridiculous for us to give them some arms and abandon them and see what happens. You're implying he could have used a million other historical analogies there to explain why that was bad. He didn't. He just did want to shit on Second Amendment Americans.
Could be.
Okay.
I don't know what to say. I would prefer not to shove opinions that he may not have down his throat based on these like 30-step extrapolations.
Okay. I mean, I figure that like a person's body of work kind of gives you an idea of the positions that they have around a thing, and all their fan base is looking at them with certain positions. And here's a question. What do you think the majority of Hasan's fan base thinks about U.S. intervention in Taiwan?
I think the majority of Hasan's fan base probably thinks that Taiwan should be reabsorbed into China and should just bend over and take it.
Okay. And Ethan has been fighting a lot with tanky members of Hasan's fan base. When Hasan gives an answer like Vivek is saying we should just give them all guns like Second Amendment Americans, do you think that Hasan's fan base is like, damn, Hasan thinks we should have full military intervention? Yeah, that's like a convincing argument. Or do you think Hasan's fan base is like, how the retarded thing to do? Why would we even arm Taiwan?
The point is, I watched you react to this. You didn't have any of these criticisms, by the way. You didn't have any of this commentary when you reacted to this because your reaction was similar to mine, which was until he starts getting into the Ukraine stuff, which that's the part where I tuned out. He doesn't say anything totally super controversial, and actually a lot of the things he says are quite accurate.
I feel like I had exactly this reaction. I think I made fun of him for waffling so hard. Did you not watch my reaction to this?
For waffling.
Yes, for waffling.
But waffling is him just like tripping over his words or whatever the fuck. It doesn't necessarily suggest.
Okay, I see malice in it. I think we're just on worlds apart here. But like, I don't know why. I'm not sure where this charity to Hasan comes from. Because if somebody says how many Jews died in the Holocaust, and someone's like, let's say somebody says how many Jews died in the Holocaust. One person says 6 million, and then let's say somebody else says how many Jews died in the Holocaust, and someone says, well, the official number is 6 million. Do you think those two people answer that question similarly?
No.
Okay. Do you agree that the answers given there are actually the exact opposite, even though both are technically correct?
I gotta be honest. I wasn't.
Why did you just say no? It's okay. A guy asked two people. He says, "How many Jews died in the Holocaust?" And one guy says 6 million, and the other guy says,
I have to really read into this because I understand. Like, go ahead.
You don't. Okay. One guy says 6 million, and the other guy says the official reported number is 6 million.
I see. Yes. One is suggesting that the official reported number is wrong.
Okay, but he's technically correct.
I understand, but Hasan isn't doing anything like that.
So when Hasan says, I mean, ethnically, they're Han Chinese.
Not insofar as we've seen the video.
Okay. All right. Can I use the restroom real quick?
I'll allow it. Okay. Carry on.
Also, I'm like down-regulated from my 3 days of Adderall. Okay, so I'm screaming at you, but I love you so much. You're my favorite long-haired, tall guy, and I'll always remember the movie.
I don't take any of this. This is my favorite thing in the world.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'll be right back. 1 second.
It's crazy. You know what I watched last night? Top Gun Maverick. I got a lot to say about that movie. My first reaction is like, this is like a fucking Who Asked, boomer fucking nostalgia 30 years later sequel that might as well have been written by ChatGPT. Like those were my thoughts at the very beginning. But then like the movie picks up and gets kind of cool. And then I read the trivia, and apparently I didn't know this watching it because CG is so good, you can't tell if things are real or CG. But a lot of those in-cabin, a lot of the in-cabin footage of that movie, like they really flew out on real jets, which is insane. Like the expenses must have been so impossible to justify. They had to have just dug into the
what movie we're talking about?
DoD. Top Gun Maverick.
Oh, they did a lot of real jet flying. They did a lot of CGI too, but yeah, there was, yeah.
It almost feels like a wasted expense because like you can't fucking tell either way, but it's really cool. It is like really cool details to read about. Like the fact they really went out there. And the roof coming up on that guard shack in the beginning, like really happened. That's crazy. Okay, well we got 2 extra people in here.
I just came to talk about Maverick.
Oh. I was just saying to you, but I just want to say to Destiny that the Holocaust analogy is terrible because the U.S.'s policy on the Holocaust isn't ambiguous. It's very clear.
Oh my god, I'm killing myself right now.
Okay. And WickedSupreme is 100% correct that Anna was derailing because the situations aren't comparable at all, and I have no idea why Erudite joined to like fight him on that. He was 100% correct. And he was super patient in trying to let her get through stuff because he was understanding of her like emotional position. So W, but I guess next time just tear into whoever is disagreeing with you. Bye.
Okay.
I watched Top Gun Maverick for the first time the other day.
Oh, did you?
I did.
I walked out of that movie feeling like it was like a 6.57 out of 10. It was a solid movie, and as time has gone on, I don't know why, but in my head I love it more and more.
No, really?
Oh, it was a fucking great ass movie. I loved it. Rewatched parts on YouTube over and over again. It's a good ass film.
Can you apply this good take to Oppenheimer?
Stop.
Like, can you just
stop?
Every single criticism you've had about Oppenheimer has been 100% correct.
He's glazing.
No.
For the
I think
for the song.
There are some good criticisms, but there's not enough deference given to the good parts of the movie.
Listen, who the fuck cares if Oppenheimer keeps his clearance? He's not working mission, right? Like, why is that the fucking conclusion of the movie? Who gives, like, the main conflict of the movie is whether or not Oppenheimer, gets his clearance revoked for being a communist. Who the fuck cares, man?
True.
Just ignite the bomb, show us the bomb, Nolan, build a big-ass bomb. That's what we care about.
True.
Okay.
That was all you guys had to say about Maverick? Fuck.
Wolfgand, what are you doing here?
No, I have a lot to say about that movie, but...
Oh, also, can I do a quick thing? Can I do a quick shout-out? And it's a little... maybe it's cringe of me to shout this out, but one thing I love, and Tom Cruise does this in a lot of his movies, good representation of everybody, no cringe. Nobody even complained about it. There was never a moment where it was like, girl power, I'm a female pilot, and that's why I'm so good for this mission. No talk about how she made the final cut of people that actually flew the mission, because she was just a cool woman. She did her shit, she kicked ass, it was fine, right? I think there were black people there too and everything. So much diversity, so much integration, and nobody complained. It was a good-ass movie, and nobody was cringe about it, so...
Okay, well, I don't know if I'm getting in the way of the fucking Taiwan thing. You guys can keep getting
Take a Maverick break.
Okay, we can take a quick Maverick detour.
It doesn't sound... Well, I don't know. Sounds like people are very invested on YouTube reaping each other's
It's all good. Don't worry about it. It's not the conversation. It's the pilot. Go ahead.
Okay, sure. No, I was just going to ask. I wanted to know more thoughts from Supreme about Maverick, essentially, because
I have a lot of thoughts. I have a lot of thoughts about the movie.
I just want to hear why you think it's a waste for if the CGI looks similar to the live action, like how would it detract essentially from?
I think it adds, but only in ways that aren't reflected in the actual movie, right? Like, you have to go outside of the movie and read about it to be impressed. Like, I just assumed all the shit I was seeing was on a soundstage or like at a gyroscope or some shit, right?
Yeah. Well,
but, I appreciate it. I really appreciate that shit. But it must have been hard as fuck to sell to, like, either the DoD had to just front all the costs as like recruitment, right, expenditures or whatever the fuck, or part of a recruitment effort, or it must have been just like Tom spending his own money.
I don't think it's hard to sell at all. Isn't it the opposite? I thought that the DoD is glad to allow access to movie stuff and everything, as long as you don't ever show. I think you're not allowed to show the U.S. military in a bad light. And my understanding is, this might be totally false, but I thought I read this in a lot of places. I thought that there was a huge increase of applicants to the Air Force and the Navy after the first Top Gun. Like, it was like an amazing recruitment tool. I remember reading that in places. I don't know who's true.
Yeah, what I was saying was, if it weren't the case that the DoD paid for it or that Tom Cruise paid for it, it would have been probably impossible to justify it at studios, that they had to, like, go out and pay for real jets instead of just doing it all CG or whatever.
Oh, maybe. I would almost agree with you, except I'm pretty sure that at this point, I think Tom Cruise could move heaven and earth, and people would, like, be there with bulldozers ready to help him. He commands a lot of respect. Tom Cruise, like, can do no wrong. He's a god, literally. Well, he is Xenu.
The budget for Top Gun was, now obviously Navy has a huge incentive to give a lot of shit over to the movie and to help out with it, but it's only $10,000 an hour to do the flights for an F-18. So
wait, what?
Yeah, it's only $10,000 per flight hour. So
I mean, it's more than that, right? Because it's also accommodations for people and the training involved, and like extra safety stuff and insurance for the actors, and launching from an aircraft carrier and the staffing around. Like, it's more than that, right?
No, it is, but I mean, these are all groups. Think about it, right? Like there's an F-18 launching off an aircraft carrier, every day, right? They're going to be doing these things anyway. The teams that are on the ground are getting paid regardless because they're in the military. They need to do these things for training and for routine and drill and all that other shit. So at the end of the day, a lot of this stuff is just happening, and the Navy has every incentive. The military at large has every incentive to help them out with the film. So I just imagine that a lot of these costs were a wash.
Yeah, but that still adds up if they've got like 12 people, right? Or 13 or 14 people that are launching these things. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they're not all launching at the same time. But
when you say you felt like it was ChatGPT writing like a 80s movie resurgence, did you mean that in a bad way? Because I feel like that's fucking awesome.
Kind of. We've gotten so many of these Who Asked decades later fucking sequels, right? And like, I don't know. Listen, my bigger problem with the movie is it's actually similar to The Matrix, where the first
wait. Are you talking about ChatGPT writing which movie? Oppenheimer or Top Gun Maverick? Oh, okay. So, you're insulting. Okay, go ahead.
In the beginning, yeah, that's how I felt. I was like, wow, they're really just hitting all the obvious beats that you would expect them to. I thought actually this movie was similar to The Matrix 4, like, and dropped the ball in similar ways. How the very first like half of the movie is like throwing all these jabs at Tom Cruise for being old. Like he gets thrown out of the bar by the young kids, and they're the ones that get to stay in there and have fun while he's sitting outside watching. It's like all of his like, military compatriots telling him fucking all your friends are either dead or admirals. Like, what the hell's wrong with you? Like, you're taking orders from people half your age now. Like, it seems like a lot of the movie was gearing up to, and then they put him in this role to be a mentor, and it seemed like that was supposed to be the moral of the movie is like, okay, you can't be fucking 25 forever, Tom Cruise. Like, you got to grow up and be a mentor, and you've got to like there's going to be new generations of people, and you have to, like, your role in society has to shift to help them succeed. You can't be the ace fighter pilot at 60 years old anymore. But then they kind of like completely reverse that, and fucking he does this like, the teaching job totally begrudgingly, and then like everything else about the movie tells him, no, you fuck it, you can take your shirt off in the beach scene even though you're 60. You can be the head pilot and the team leader in the mission. You're still the guy. You can even be saved at the end or whatever. Like, I just felt like they dropped, and at the end, what does he do? He like gets the girl, and it's like a teen summer movie. Like,
but don't you feel like that's a good compromise?
Oh my god, I found the man. This is the man with worse movie takes than me. He's got to come here every time before I give a movie take.
If people are gonna watch Top Gun, they probably want to see Maverick. I mean, people buy like motorcycles and base themselves off of this fucking dude, right? And then you're gonna have him in the movie to take a backseat. Now, I'm sure that's a brave idea and a cool idea, but how many fans of the original, which I guess they're more than I thought they were originally. I didn't think Top Gun the original was that great of a movie, had that good of a narrative or story, but apparently people love it. But for those people, right, they're gonna come in, they're gonna be like, what, my guy is taking a fucking back seat and this fucking little kid's gonna be the next Maverick? They probably want to see some Tom Cruise in the middle, and I feel like it was a good compromise, don't you think so? Like just
as a quick reference, the first Top Gun was a dog shit movie, but it was real.
You guys are fucking high.
It was real planes.
Wait, what?
It was real planes and a real aircraft carrier. That's why people cared about it so much, and that's why it was so cool at the time. But like,
I'm a movie relativist. That's true. Like the fucking first Top Gun was just 80s fucking machismo, all that shit. It was a good movie. Like, if you go into it watching it expecting like a modern time movie, yeah, you're not going to enjoy it as much. It was a good movie. It was a really good movie.
Cringe. How many times did we get the exact same cut of that like airplane exploding with the missile hitting it because they didn't have like the budget to film it more than once? It was like watching DBZ with the same punch animation.
Yeah, I don't know. Listen, for the original, now this is me coming out and equating good movies with, like, I would say regular movie structure, but you have a movie that's about Tom Cruise going to like this amazing pilot program and stuff like that, and you're building up some rivalries, but at the end of the day, there's just I don't remember, are they like at a wedding or a big celebration party for somebody, and out of nowhere they're like, oh, now we have some badass dudes coming in when we need the top.
You got to think about, it's a war movie during a time of like technically the Cold War is going on, but overall there isn't a point of conflict, right? So it's like when you watch any other war movie that's been around that doesn't take place in Afghanistan or Iraq over the last 30 years, like it's just some random fucking conflict has to happen, right? Troops have to get called into whatever. So it's all like utter bullshit, right? But there was a whole plot to the fucking story. The whole thing is you have Maverick, this dude who's wild and crazy and doesn't give a shit about authority, always thinking for himself, and has to go through hard lessons, losing Goose and realizing you have to be a team player. You have to actually focus on something other than yourself and your own glory. And there is a transformative journey for him through that. There are some things that kind of don't make sense too much, but overall, it's an 80s action movie, so there is a strong enough plot to carry us from point A to point B. And the military thing, it has to be contrived, right? So yeah, he finishes school, and then it's like, okay, cool. Well, hey, school's over, boys. We got to go fucking do real shit now. And then we get into the action scene in the end, in redemption.
Wait, you know what? I'll give it a rewatch, and I'll talk with you about this again, because I just remember coming out of the original Top Gun, feeling like it was such a dog shit film that had like cool factor. And trust me, cool factor can be enough to sell a movie sometimes. You just got to be honest about it.
Well, wait, how is it dog shit?
No, because listen, the way people talked about Top Gun, I thought this was gonna be like a cool ass fucking masterpiece with a story that was like super engaging and still like hella cool. It's just a cool movie with like tons of fun. It feels like somehow, and I'm gonna be honest with you here, watching Karate Kid the original felt like that it had more of a narrative, it had more character, and it had more character growth from the beginning of the movie to the end, instead of something like Top Gun. It feels like, I don't know, it feels like at least Tom Cruise's character, I can't remember the growth genuinely 100% for his character like at all. It's just we lose Goose, we're kind of sad, and then suddenly we gotta save America because there's some fucking people coming in, right? I understand what you're saying, like, and I'm just gonna have to rewatch the movie because I just remember disagreeing so hard. But I'll take your word for it. I just need a rewatch.
Yeah, give it a watch. I mean, it's an entertaining watch. If you like jet fighters and all that shit, it's fucking fun. And I highly recommend, if you do like jet fighters, playing DCS, because it's the funnest fucking game in the world, especially with the VR headset.
Someone at Kickchat said every time Wolfgand starts to talk, he begins with an emoji.
It's true, I do. Yeah, wait, does this person know me? Yeah, I do. Fuck you. Why is that a problem, sir? Fuck you. I don't give a fuck if you're mad about my emojis. Also, Ace Combat is 10,000 times better than whatever game.
I disagree. I've never even played it.
You're wrong. You're so wrong.
Yeah,
but that's okay.
I like DCS because if I were to sit into the fucking cockpit of an F-18 or an F-14, I could, by memory, start up a real one. And that's why I like it, because it's like autism simulator for airplanes.
It's okay to like simulators, but if you want some real fun, some real speed, if you want to get to the edge of fast, then you got to play Ace Combat, bro. Wait, we got a little bit away from Maverick, which I think is super interesting because I love the idea of a resurgence of I don't want to use the word shitty because that is not the way to go, but like a more basic 80s movie that's all about like flair and cool. WickedSupreme.
What's up?
Dude, I feel so bad for the Taiwan people. I just wanted more thoughts. Give it to me. Let me hear. I'm so interested in Maverick. I think that movie it feels strange because we got John Wick, which in my opinion felt really close to also trying to capture that 80s, maybe 90s movie essence of like cool guy.
What are we? Hold on. Oh, Jesus Christ. Wait.
What?
What are we talking about?
It's
Am I crazy? Wait, hold on. John Wick was not a... I don't think John Wick was a retro callback to literally...
You don't think so?
I don't think so.
It was kind of a retro callback to The Matrix, I think. I think it's...
Like, I disagree with
the appeal of those movies.
Wait, I don't think it was... like, you're Steven Seagals, you're Stallone, you're like, this guy is a sad man who has a lot of gun ability, and he's about to go somewhere and wreck shit up. At the end of the day, he's gonna come... Now, it's got more modern elements, but you don't think fundamentally it's like the same structure?
No, it's too polished. No, it's too polished. There's too much world building. There's too much. There's too much,
no like cool guy lines. There's no. I think that's an incredibly modern movie.
The similarities are too incidental too. I don't think people are going.
If you wanted a good example, I think Dredd would be a really good example of like a callback to those types of movies.
But hold on, the cool lines are totally there. They're just not coming from John, right? You even quoted yourself like, "Oh, I went to a bar and John Wick killed somebody with a..." Like you're quoting the pencil thing too. Sure, they're not coming from John. He has no like one-liners. They're like, "You killed my dog, fuck you." But they're.
But think of how it's delivered. That's it. That's a huge thing. Like with the polish, right? The way it's delivered. It's not just like I saw him and he killed 2 men with the pencil, with a fucking pencil.
Well, here's a question. What were early, and this could just be a genre that I'm not familiar with existing like before the 2000s, and I'm sure it must have, and I just don't know the films, but can you give me films that existed before the 2000s that are kind of like these? So films like Denzel Washington and Man on Fire, Taken, John Wick, these types of like, somebody took something from me and now I'm going to go on a massive killing spree where I'm not even trying to save somebody, I'm just killing everybody. Like what are early pre-2000s like examples of these types of films?
Oh, fuck, okay.
The revenge porn.
Dude,
I think that stuff started with Old Boy, but I guess there's like the Charles Bronson, right? The fucking perennial. What was the Street Justice or some shit like that? Like,
if you want an example of that 80s throwback, it's the Expendables, literally and figuratively.
Death Wish.
Like the Expendables, it has all those fucking characters that were all playing those 80s movies, but at the same time, it's all the same, just like hyper machismo, no real point. CIA, Shadow Dude needs you to come in and do a fucking mission, and you're the only ones who can do it, and fuck you, we don't care if you die. Like,
gotcha. Yeah, I'll concede on that. To me, what I thought Lycan is exactly what you're saying. If you want a movie that just retreads exactly that old format, you have, I was gonna say the Invisibles, the Expendables. Now, if you want to modernize it, I thought that's what John Wick and then the John Wick copycats tried to do. The one with fucking Saul Goodman. I forgot what it's called.
Better Call Saul.
Yeah, no, but there was a movie where he was like the
nobody.
That was like a recap, or like that was like a remodeling, I guess, of the John Wick thing. Like, they're bringing me back in, I gotta go. But with this time, he's tied to his family and all that shit. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. There's another trope. Like, oh, he was retired, but now he's got to come back.
This has nothing to do with Top Gun Maverick, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
I just think that Top Gun Maverick isn't like Top Gun Maverick is such a better polished movie. It has a little bit of that 80s machismo, but it doesn't take any lean
risks.
into it in weird ways. It doesn't have to.
It doesn't take any risks, but sometimes I think there's some charm to a very simple, tight movie. Like, did you like Whiplash?
Yeah, sure.
In my opinion, Whiplash takes almost no risks. That's not a very ambitious film at all. It's very simple, but it's like tight, and I think you can appreciate. You disagree with that?
You're watching the poor kid get fucking tortured the entire movie.
Yeah, but when I say risks, I mean that like it's a very concise narrative. We're not getting any like complicated, expanded themes. We're not getting anything like super philosophical. It's a pretty tight, concise film in terms of what it shows. Like, it tears along the screen very quickly. There's not like a lot to ponder, any deep philosophical themes. I think it's a very simple film compared to something that deals with something grander, like say like Interstellar. Interstellar is a far more ambitious film.
But I mean, even the first Top Gun took risks by killing Goose.
No, it's formulaic. Wait, are you being serious right now, or?
Well,
that wasn't a risk.
Isn't like death of a friend, especially to show like hubris in a character? Like, isn't that like kind of part of like a standard like hero story or something? Not like the Greek one, but like I don't know if that's
it's more risk than Maverick took though, right?
Well, that's what Steven's kind of talking about, right? Like, the risk would have been killing off Maverick, right? We have no confirmed Top Gun 3 or anything like that.
It could have been any of the other pilot, right? Like, it could have been a story about the new generation. Like maybe Hangman, or even maybe fucking Rooster gets chosen to be the leader, or Hangman does because Hangman should have, right? Because he's the most skilled motherfucker there. Maybe missing some team whatever consideration, but maybe it could have been that Rooster loses somebody, and now he's able to identify with Maverick. Like, oh fuck, like I suddenly can commiserate with you, and I understand that this is like, maybe it's not my fault, but I'm going to blame myself for the rest of my life, and maybe somebody else will too. Maybe their families will or something. I feel like those could have been things in the script that.
But they went out of their way to not. They went out of their way because it would have been too predictable to not make the hugest conflict the fact that Maverick was responsible for Rooster's father's death. And I'm glad they didn't like lean into that, because I was expecting it, and that really wasn't the issue. It was the issue is that he blocked him from flight school.
Oh, that's true. No, that's true.
I just think it would have been
issues like kind of the same thing.
I thought they were tied, but
they were tied similarly because of what happened to Goose. Rooster was that was the guilt that Maverick was carrying, but they didn't make the conflict between Rooster and Maverick the death of his father. They made it holding back his career.
Maverick, yeah.
True that.
Oh, I just want to say, this is completely tangential. If you guys ever want to spend an insane amount of money on a couch, get a Lovesac and get the speaker system that goes into Lovesac. Watching fucking Maverick with that fucking subwoofer under your ass is fucking incredible.
Yeah, I wish I would have seen this in theaters, honestly. Definitely an in-theaters movie.
God, can you imagine how scammed everybody that saw Oppenheimer in theaters was when it was a dog shit movie to watch on IMAX, and there's literally no reason to even watch it on a big screen?
And I was like, why the fuck?
And you're like, why did I even waste my fucking time? Like, what was the point? Like, wow, I get to see that one chick's boobs and that cringe fucking writing in that book and full screen? Nice.
Okay, the book scene was cringe, but I saw that movie twice. I had to because the first time I left feeling like, I expected this to be an amazing movie.
True.
I watched it again, and I was like, you know what? It is a really fucking good movie.
Yeah.
There's still cringe. We can work past it.
The first time, you came back, you're like, oh, Destiny's giving my take. And then you saw all of Chad, like, oh,
no,
God,
I saw it twice before you.
And then you rewatch it just to try to get on Chad's good side. That's okay.
No, I saw it twice before you saw it. So the first time like, within a week of each other. And the first time I saw it, like, the whole, like, have you seen Rocket Man?
Nope.
Okay, so Rocket Man, it's a much more whimsical kind of movie, and they're showing, like, you know, Elton John's brain and how he thinks of music as a kid, and they've got like an orchestra playing in his bedroom, all that other shit. And I think that fucking Nolan was trying to go for the same stuff with like all these like shaky images of stars and all this other crap at the beginning. It was contrived. It wasn't really carried home. It didn't carry through the whole fucking thing. It was bad. I didn't like that.
Absolutely cringe.
The fucking part with the like I am become death. What a waste of a fucking line. Like that was so bad. Absolutely.
God.
Well, I mean, that has to be in there. He really translated that line.
I know.
No, it has to be in there. It doesn't have to be in that fucking weird way.
Yeah.
Like unless you can prove to me that fucking happened. Like fuck me. But the rest of the movie was good. I thought I know you don't like the clearance thing, Wicked, but I thought that conflict was good, and that was very important to like the legacy of Oppenheimer was that conflict. So I thought that the movie overall did a great job. The beginning was a little fucky. Like the almost killing the teacher thing.
Clearance?
Because if you're going to be,
he's not working mission.
He wasn't working mission, but do you need clearance for policy?
He's not a politician. What do you mean? He was just a speaker.
No, he was on the nuclear council or whatever. And he still wanted to work mission, but he couldn't.
If that's the case that he was on a council and he was being kicked off, the movie didn't establish that well, and I don't know because I don't know much about the guy's history or whatever.
True facts.
But that would certainly be more make it more relevant because it just seemed like tacked on. I was just like, why do I fucking care if he has a clearance? But I don't think a security clearance should be a fucking scout badge or like a club hall pass or something.
No, it was about his career being ruined.
Well, I mean, it's not about his career being ruined if he's not actually working anymore. But they didn't establish that he was, though.
I don't know. Well, now I guess I'll go watch it the third time.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to see it again. Maybe it was just fucking Rogaine brain. I don't know.
This is getting to the level of how often we bring up fucking Thrones every time. It feels like any time a movie gets brought up, it's just all roads, Jesus, lead to Oppenheimer being bad. And I have not seen this movie, but it's starting to get so fucking insane. You need to do a teardown of this. I don't know if Kick lets you do like watch parties or if you do
thanks,
it on
Courtney,
Discord.
for the 5
I don't know
memberships.
which way you do it. But at this point, bro, you got to do something with that other than just sitting on it and saying the same thing. You got to like get.
No, I don't.
Okay, you don't. Fuck you. All right.
Listen.
So overall, Maverick, good movie.
Maverick, listen, I feel like we should come away from that being embarrassed that 60-year-old Tom Cruise is in a movie about him being the guy. Like
he was
that guy.
He's dressing like
he is that guy. He's literally that guy.
He is. In real life, he's that guy. He's the guy.
He does his own stunts. He flies the planes himself.
Yeah.
He's this fucking guy.
Listen, man, I hate this. Like, I feel like there's this new trend that's accelerated even from beyond where it was 20, 30 years ago, where people are just afraid to grow up, or like we wanna just cling to our 20s and 30s, and
and he's clinging better than some 20 and 30-year-olds are.
Because there's so much G-force under his ass because he's flying that goddamn plane.
Also, last question about that specific topic, but did you watch Oppenheimer, Destiny, on 70mm film IMAX or without?
Oh my god, no, I think I watched it on the pretend IMAX. Maybe that's why I didn't get the full experience.
Gotcha. I was just curious, just wondering.
All right. Can we get back to China, Hasan stuff?
Absolutely.
Well, you guys have fun.
Be careful, babe.
Well, you guys have fun.
Maybe I had a hard time understanding the fucking clearance thing because, Nolan thought it would be so cool to skip around in the timeline so much.
And someone reminded me a little bit in chat. It's more so about the legacy than it is about about the clearance itself.
Yeah, but I don't think a security clearance should be a fucking trophy.
No, it's not about the clearance being a trophy. It's that through the process of clearance, that's how they maligned him.
I understand.
It's how they set up the little tribunal that didn't have to have any kind of actual court precedent or any shit like that.
Is that what your mom told you?
I understand that was the point. Like, I understood when I watched it that was the point, is that it was like a dishonor. But I just, like, you know, you've held a fucking clearance. Like, you know, clearances, they come and go depending on what you're doing. So.
Based.
Or who you're doing.
True.
Potentially, yeah.
All right. Well, you guys can fight about Hasan. I'll see you later. I promise. Bye.
Love you. Bye.
Let's go.
Go.
Opinion. Taiwan independent?
My opinion on Taiwan is that Taiwan is the Chinese concept of Taiwan should remain in the hands of the people in Taiwan who
so therefore
believe
it's independent.
Who, for the record, for the most part, just believe to not disrupt the ongoing relations with.
Why are you being
China.
so carefully footed around
Because
this?
I know that there's going to be a subreddit.
Issue.
There's going to be a subreddit post with like 1 million fucking comments being like, Hasan wants everyone in Taiwan to be killed because he loves China. He's a Xi Jinping.
That's what I heard.
That's what I just. It's already over. You asked me that question, like in jest, and it's gonna.
No, I was genuinely curious what you think about it.
I think that
Piker am using a gun.
I think that overall it's contemporary history is complex. At the end of the day, if the Taiwanese citizens would ever put this up for a vote and we're like, we want to fucking be an independent nation, it's up to them. You know what I mean?
They
You
already
can't.
done that?
No.
There
is no.
No, what Hasan said is true from everything I've read. The most people in Taiwan nowadays support just keeping the status quo, like the kind of.
But they're
strategic ambiguity of
the
what's
overwhelming
going on
majority. The overwhelming majority's consensus opinion
Pause.
is that
Okay. What are you at?
52-35.
Now, if I was a politically uneducated person, I might take that claim that the majority of Taiwan prefers the status quo. I might take that at face value. Okay. Is that what the current polling data says?
Yes.
Okay. Now let me ask you a slightly more sophisticated question. Is that what the polling data says because Taiwanese people genuinely enjoy the bizarro dual status they live in? Or is that what the current polling data says is because people are worried about the conflict that will arise if Taiwan did? Okay. Thought so.
Chinese invasion.
Gotcha. Do you think that that's what's being implied here?
They're going to get to that in like 2 seconds, yeah.
Okay.
Maybe not. Maybe they're not. Maybe what's his nuts? Who's the producer? What's his name?
Dan.
Maybe Dan's content to leave it right there and not discuss that it's because they fear invasion, but they're going to get to it, so we'll just see him discuss it.
Okay. Ready?
Yep.
3, 2, 1, go.
They don't want to disrupt relations with China, and they also, like, obviously if it was a situation between like full-blown independence versus like becoming a Chinese state, like becoming a part of the Chinese state.
Do the people of Taiwan like pay taxes in China? Like, do they vote?
I don't know. I don't know
if they
the
even have
exact
elections.
details of that.
Do they have like travel status in China?
But the thing is, like, as far as Chinese Taiwanese relations goes, like the original inception of the country is
Taiwan
a fascist dictatorship that America.
Oh, Jesus. We're going to go back a bit there. But when I pause, do you see how Hasan was about to take a strong stance on whether Taiwan should be fully independent or assimilated back into China? Ethan interrupted him, and then Hasan kept talking, and then he didn't return to that, what would have been a very strong stance to have.
Yeah. I wish we could have heard that stance. Like,
do you think? I understand you're saying you wish you could have heard that stance, but like, do you think there might be a reason why we're not hearing that stance?
Well, because they've moved on to other questions. Hasan seemed content to answer it at the moment. That's Ethan's folly, not finding interest in the answer to what you and I agree is like the most interesting, like the most interesting nuance of the opinion that Hasan can have on this topic.
They moved on. He said like 12 words. Hasan could have very easily said, okay, yeah, but let me just answer this question.
But this is where I'm saying, like, I think Hasan's ability to articulate is just fucked. And like I think his struggle through his words is like genuine right now.
I think Hasan is intentionally avoiding planting a strong flag in the sand because he wants to virtue signal to his tanky audience, and he wants to not step on what is politically popular right now, which is supporting Taiwan.
That could be true.
Okay, I think that's supported by everything that's been said. But okay, hold on. I went back to 5310 because we're about to hear some very fun things. So I backed up a little. Is that okay? Are you at 5310?
Yes, 5310.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, go.
Taiwan
is a fascist dictatorship that America recognized as the real China until Richard Nixon.
Can we pause?
Yep.
Okay, I'm at 5320. I just don't agree that
normalized
Chiang Kai-shek's KMT, moving the Nationalist Party over to Taiwan, it was a military dictatorship, and it was like pretty brutal. There was a period called the White Terror that you might want to look into. But calling it fascist is another chip in the hat of fascist doesn't mean anything. I wouldn't call it fascist by any means.
Why do you think he carved out a little time there to call the founding of Taiwan fascist? Earlier he said, did he say earlier they were ethnically Chinese, or maybe we haven't gotten that part yet? And he's saying,
go ahead.
I
can answer your question. My first suspicion would be that he's trying to lay some historical claim for why Taiwan should belong to the PRC. That would be my suspicion.
Okay. Are you ready?
Yep.
5320, 3, 2, 1, go.
China, and that's where they implemented the, they call it strategic ambiguity, which I call lying.
Hold on, this says that the current administration of Taiwan maintains that Taiwan is already an independent country.
Yes.
Thus does not have to push for any sort of formal independence.
There are, well, that's because they don't want to do like a full-blown.
Exactly.
They don't want to disrupt the status quo. That's why they're saying that.
They don't want to be invaded by China.
They want autonomy while simultaneously being under the Chinese banner, according
Seems like
to
they want independence, but they just don't want to be like attacked by China.
Hold on, stop.
Okay.
Without knowing anything about this, it kind of sounds like, in simpler words, now I could be wrong, kind of sounds like Ethan is more knowledgeable in his guesswork here than Hasan is. I think that what Ethan just said there was pretty prescient, no? Seems like they want to be independent. That was the question I asked you about the polling data, and Ethan got there through critical thinking.
Yes.
Yeah, so it seems like Ethan is more correct here than Hasan, but...
Okay. So there's some ambiguity in what Hasan's saying, because he says they want to have autonomy under the Chinese banner. Now, how would you interpret that?
I already gave you. My interpretation of every single thing Hasan says is he's in a land where he's trying to maintain loyalty to his tanky audience while not saying anything politically unpopular that's going to get him in hot water. So every single thing he says is going to be in service to that. That's how I'm interpreting almost everything Hasan says.
That's really simplistic, and there are two ways to interpret that that are sort of accurate to if you were to understand the issue, right? One way is that Hasan might be saying they want autonomy while having official relations with the PRC and like being recognized as part of the PRC. The other way to interpret that is that Hasan may be saying they want autonomy and they want to be recognized as China, as the ROC, the Republic of China, which was previously the stance that the United States had, which is that Taiwan was the official representative of China until Nixon, and that some collection of people, there's still, to this day, it's pretty fringe. I think it's like less than 5% of people, still hold that. That's their political will, is that they think that Taiwan is the ROC and that they still have like hope holding out that they'll reclaim the mainland or something like that. Because everybody in the, basically from the, 50s to maybe the mid 80s or early 80s was taught that in school. Was that like they would all grow up and like go back and rescue China or something like that. So I'm not sure which direction Hasan's going with that. But do you understand like how, from my perspective, I'm hearing this, and I'm not hearing necessarily directly the PRC needs to go like take Taiwan or something like that. Like I can hear a statement like that. They want autonomy under the Chinese banner. Is he saying they want autonomy and they want to be recognized as China, or they want autonomy and they want to be absorbed back into the PRC?
All I want is that if I do decide to go back to college, I hope to God I have a professor like you, where I can write like 2 sentences in an essay, and the professor's like, well, what he really meant was, and then he spits out a whole bunch of shit that I totally had no fucking idea about. But I mean, I don't know if we're ever coming together on that thing, but yeah.
Okay.
But okay. How does my train take so long to slow down? What a dog shit train. Okay. Ready? I'm at, wait, where are you at? I'm at 53, 57.
That's where I'm at.
3, 2, 1, go.
Militarily.
Well, that's part of it for sure. So you understand how...
Hold on, pause. Do you see the minimizing there?
Yep. I'm sorry?
Do you see the minimization there of that? Well, that's part of it, I guess. I feel like that's probably like 90% of it. No? Like, I feel like, here's my, this is just a guess again. I don't know much. I know people, I know a little bit about, but I don't know much about Taiwan and China. But if Taiwan could take a vote and be a fully realized independent nation that had guarantees from China that there would be no military intervention, do you think the vast majority of Taiwanese people would instantaneously sign up for that? Or do you think there'd be a lot of pushback?
Yeah, instantaneously, yes.
Okay. So when Hasan says that's part of it, that feels really silly to me to say.
Okay. So the other part of it is, even if China were not to launch an invasion of Taiwan in retaliation of declaring independence, the bridges that Taiwan and China have right now are still tenuous. And the fear would be that people in Taiwan would be cut off from mainland
Well, that's
China.
what I'm including. Not necessarily just a military, but that relations would be normalized. If there were if there was a guarantee of a normalization of relations.
So when he says that that's part of it, right? The fear of being invaded, he's again technically right that it is part of it. The other part of it is that Taiwan is still very economically dependent on China. So even if there was not a military invasion, if China just cut off Taiwan in retaliation, even economically, not militarily, this would still be really bad for Taiwan and is a legitimate fear for not wanting to proclaim independence. Okay. Doesn't necessarily have to be purely...
All right, hold on. We've got intervention from our resident vegan. Go ahead.
Yeah, so...
Vegan Gains!
Hey.
I'm so glad you're here. Go ahead.
Yeah, like, okay, I don't think Taiwanese people would be in favor of negotiating with China. It's basically like negotiating with Russia. They're lying scum. So a negotiation wouldn't guarantee anything. I think what Taiwanese people would really want would be to be an independent nation and be part of NATO.
Based!
Like, why the fuck do you think Xi Jinping is trustworthy?
Hold on, wait. To be fair to, I don't know how much you've listened to this, but to be fair to WickedSupreme, I just presented as a hypothetical that they would agree to it. Now, realistically, I'm sure all of us here know that China would probably not.
They would probably use that as a means to invade Taiwan.
Sure.
The answer to that question is fantastically. I'm sorry, like this seems like a cop out, but like, I would just say, listen, there's a reason that I was surprised. There's a reason that experts in the Ukraine-Russia affair were surprised when Russia invaded. Nobody can say with certainty whether or not.
No one was surprised.
Wait, hold on, stop.
That's not true.
Wait, stop. You're both wrong. Okay. There were some analysts that were surprised, and there were lots of analysts that called it exactly. I started reading more of them after the invasion because I was retarded. But prior to the invasion, there were many analysts that detailed exactly what was happening and exactly why Russia would invade and exactly why it was really, they had to. There was no way not to. They mobilized people. They'd made the threats. They were like, yeah. So to say that nobody knew what was happening is not true. Just saying. Right?
Didn't U.S. intelligence know like 2 years ahead of time?
No, U.S. intelligence knew when like these mobilizations had already happened and everything, but like there were guesses about it happening ahead of time from military analysts, but not the U.S. military, I don't think. But
that's a little hindsight 2020 by saying, well, I read some people that predicted it correctly after the fact.
Oh, no, wait, not just some people, but like, was Kaufman one of them? There are people that are like well known for their military and their geopolitical international like analysis and everything, and they've been right, and there was like, but apparently, when I say I read them in the past, I don't mean that like they said like, oh, I was right. I mean that like when you read the articles up to the invasion, I think that like it's been a while, but it was like Russia had already mobilized troops in certain ways. Russia had already said that they were going to do the invasion. Russia was not successful in their attempts to separate the territories in the southeast. So the Turkish drones and everything were turning out of war. That Russia had already, that basically Putin either had to go through with the invasion when he finally said he would, or he would have been ousted as a leader. That those predictions and claims were made, and it was all like very well put out, and then it did happen exactly as I said. Yeah, it wasn't just like they guessed and it happened. That's what I mean.
Well, sure, those are very strong, well-reasoned predictions, right? But I don't think anyone would have said with 100% certainty, yeah, they're definitely going to invade. Like, anything can happen. I don't know.
Well, it's just so stupid.
And I would say, personally, that whether or not China would really invade Taiwan, we know they really want to, but whether they really would, I don't think anybody can say with certainty.
I think at this point the likelihood is much lower because the U.S. has clearly made a strong commitment to prevent fascist dictators from illegally invading other nations.
Well, I mean,
and at least the Biden administration.
It doesn't even go that far. They don't need to extrapolate. We've made strong demonstrations in China's fucking face.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we've sailed carrier groups down the Taiwan Strait. Like,
yeah, and there's so many other nations too, like South Korea, Australia, Japan, who'd actually also defend Taiwan.
Wow. There's so much we can learn from you, Vegan Gains. Just what a man of so many talents. What else you got for us?
I can lift a lot of weight too. Why is it so quiet?
I don't know.
We're just waiting for you to educate us.
Well, I don't know what I think. Oh, me and Wicked are just going through this video, so we're probably gonna resume. Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm about to start my own live stream.
Okay.
All right. Well, take care.
Have fun. Okay.
Okay.
Ready?
I feel so enriched.
Okay. 3, 2, 1, go.
Taiwan was
wait, I'm sorry. Pause again. My bad. I didn't ask where you were at. Where are you at right now?
I am now at 5405.
Hold on.
Yeah. Nation state, right? Like, so Mao purged.
Okay. Ready?
Yep.
3, 2, 1, go.
And defeated the counter-revolutionary forces. Taiwan has been a larger part of like China historically, and the original Taiwanese claim was that the entire mainland China belonged to what is now known as Taiwan. And that was the American foreign policy position as well, because, you know, China
so he's misspeaking there. He's talking about how the ROC's claim was that the entire mainland China belonged to the ROC, belonged to what is now Taiwan.
Yeah.
Did you understand that? Because he misspoke and said China.
Oh. Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't catch as much speak, but my understanding is that for a long time, both China and Taiwan, I don't know if this is current, but I think both China and Taiwan both considered themselves the rightful owner of all of China, where a lot of people are aware that the People's Republic of China, or China, thinks it owns Taiwan, kind of, but that at one point in time, the Taiwanese thought that they were the rightful owners of all of China, right?
That's correct.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Ready?
I'm at 5432.
Okay. 3, 2, 1, go.
It's communist, and Taiwan was a fascist military dictatorship. So they were like, oh yeah, we're just gonna completely ignore China until Nixon normalized relations with China. And then Taiwan became a democratic country, of course, with still a lot of reactionary opinions overall, but like that's gone away in recent years. I think the younger generations have a different perspective on the matter. But overall, like historically speaking, Taiwan and China being the same country, it has been around for much longer than, like, as Elon Musk said, Hawaii being an American state. Much, much longer.
Taiwan is already independent. That's what I'm saying. People don't want a formal declaration just because they don't want a fucking war. But they're not wanting to be Hong Kong and be consumed by the Chinese party.
They don't want to be Hong Kong? What happened in Hong Kong?
Am I saying the right place?
No, you
They
are
were independent, and then they got eaten.
They were not independent.
Oh, they had some rights. They were less independent than Taiwan, and then they got eaten up.
Hong Kong was bought by you know.
Are you saying the people of Hong Kong did not want to be?
There were certainly people that did not want to be a part of China. Absolutely, that is 100% correct.
Most of them.
A lot of
people there took a lot of pride in not being.
A lot of people enjoyed having Western civil liberties, while simultaneously like being in a unique position. But now that China already does regular trade with the rest of the world, because like at a time in like the 90s, Hong Kong was seen as like this prosperous middle ground. But since the 2000s, like because of an insane amount of development and insane trade relations with the rest of the planet. There are tier 1 cities that are even larger and have more economic activity than Hong Kong in and of itself. And there was always a timeline where Hong Kong was going to be given back to China. They just accelerated it by like 2 decades, if I'm not mistaken. Because that was a lease on Hong Kong.
Pause.
No, just like the way that he talks about that, he is soft-footed on China, right?
Okay.
But to describe, like for Ethan to bring up Hong Kong as if it's analogous to Taiwan, or that our support of Hong Kong could be as it is for Taiwan, I think Hasan is accurately describing the situation of Hong Kong, that there was always like a rightful claim for it to return to the PRC, and that's not relevant to Taiwan.
Okay. I feel like a better and more concise defense would be that the United States of America has promised to support Taiwan. We have not made that promise for Hong Kong.
Well, we can. Like,
we absolutely could. No?
I mean, sure. Like Hong Kong and, well, I don't know. I mean, listen, I mean, even disregarding the viability of being able to do such a thing, right? Like a land invasion of China. I mean, here, I think what Anna brought up earlier, we would have to question, wait a minute, if the whole point of our support for Crimea remaining in Ukraine, even despite like democratic will, where it, if it existed or whatever, right? Like, I think we both agree that they didn't have legitimate elections in Crimea. But how would we argue for the international system and such that Crimea should remain part of Ukraine? You and I would I would probably argue, I assume you would, I would argue that there's like, if you're absent some major human rights abuses, you shouldn't allow like countries to splinter off because it threatens the stability, and like the dynamics of these countries economically and socially are dependent on the economic output of different regions or what have you, right? And like restructuring.
Yeah, countries can't just like, without a huge like country-wide referendum that respects the autonomy of the country, or unless there's like perhaps like genocide or massive abuses or whatever, maybe we could make some comments. But yeah,
right.
Otherwise countries shouldn't be able to just break away and to be, yeah, sure.
So how could you square away that we would defend Hong Kong declaring independence?
I mean, I don't think we should, but I'm just saying ultimately at the end of the day, I mean, like theoretically we could, right? Like for instance,
okay.
like I'm saying that like
I'm
saying that
nothing statement.
After the unbelievably dramatic rewriting you've done of every single thing Hasan has said, I'm just saying that at the end of the day, Taiwan's position with China is not the reason why Taiwan can make strong claims about its existence. The reason why is because the United States has supported its claim. That's what I'm saying. Now, I understand that the United States might have a better reason to support their claim than Hong Kong. That's fair. I think that is fair and true, based on the little I know. But the only reason Taiwan can stand on those claims, regardless of their legitimacy, is because of the United States' willingness to support it, I think.
Well, aside from that, Ethan is asking, what if Hong Kong declared independence? Should Hong Kong be allowed to be independent? And Hasan is explaining, well, they kind of, as a matter of contract, have always, like, that's different from Taiwan, where they did, like, splinter away, and they've been de facto, its own country or something.
I don't think that explanation is relevant, but I could be wrong. Because what happened in the past, who cares? If Taiwan splintered, what if Hong Kong splintered like Taiwan splintered? You wouldn't accept that as an argument. You'd say, well, no, China has a right to reconquer that land and keep it.
Well, I mean, it's a matter of, so if it were the case that 70 years ago, the nationalists, partly settled in Hong Kong or something and even broke away from the British, then the argument you'd make now is the same one you'd make for Taiwan. It's an argument for pragmatism. It's the fact that there's like generations of people now that are living under these systems and
I agree.
These structures.
That's a really good argument. What you're saying right there really makes a lot of sense. But Hasan didn't say it. He said 70 years ago.
I'm sorry, what?
Hasan didn't say what you're just saying. What you're saying right now is a reasonable argument. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pragmatically, if Taiwan were to come into existence today in the same way they did in the past, well, then we probably would have nothing to do with it, absent huge civil rights abuses. But I mean, Taiwan has existed in this current capacity for a long time. We've made promises to them, and we ought to back those. We ought to honor our assurances, right?
right. The difference is that Hasan is describing a peaceful, contractual handoff that was planned 100 years in advance, and that's the reason that he wouldn't support Hong Kong independence the same way you or I wouldn't support Crimean independence.
Okay.
Right, without some sort of national referendum. Now, I actually think that there are decent arguments for defending Hong Kong if it were feasible, right? Because there are human rights abuses. There have been major attempts to stamp out freedom of speech and people being taken political prisoner. Like there have been massive protests that have been met with like horrible violence and stuff. Yeah, I don't know, but Hasan's not going to offer those arguments, right? And I think,
well, I feel like, and I might be retarded. I don't know if this counts, but actually, wait, hold on. I might be retarded. Wait, anyway. Yeah, but isn't a big deal? I could be totally wrong on this, but Hong Kong is not an island, right? Hong Kong is part of mainland China. Yes.
Well, okay, so there's Hong Kong Island, and when people talk about Hong Kong, that's what they're talking about. It is an island that's barely off the coast of mainland China, and part of Hong Kong is also on mainland China. But why would that matter?
Well, because I think you can make a stronger argument because Taiwan is like its own little kind of island thing. I feel like, I could be wrong. Maybe it doesn't matter as much, but I feel like the idea of having U.S. troops in an island close off the shore of China, I say close, off the shore of China is different than having like U.S. troops on Chinese soil in China mainland proper. I feel like there might be different implications there. I could be wrong, but I feel like there are different implications there. Kind of like for a long time, and maybe I'm reading this wrong, maybe not, but I feel like for a long time, maybe the Crimean annexation, it feels a little bit different because Crimea is its own little like thing off of Ukraine, and it feels a little bit different than occupying Ukraine proper, maybe. But
yeah, basically, yeah. The point I was.
But maybe that might not make as much a difference. Maybe that's not as important, the geographic thing. Yeah.
Like the human rights abuses that Russia alleges in the Donbass, I think we can legitimately claim are occurring in Hong Kong.
Okay.
And the fact that China has breached contract, right? Like part of their one country, two systems, which is, again, Hong Kong and Macau is not Taiwan. Hasan got that, dreadfully wrong.
Okay, sure. Someone in chat keeps saying, call him out on failing to address the accelerated comment. It's not that Hong Kong is due to come under Chinese influence and it just happened earlier. It's that the plan for Hong Kong is for there to be a huge delay in integration into China with the hope that China becomes more like Western democracies in the meantime, and the acceleration is a hostile takeover.
I think I just did.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it did. Did I address it to his satisfaction already?
Well, I don't know. That guy was making that comment, so. All right. Okay, I'm at 56:51. Where are you at?
56:52.
Okay. 3, 2, 1, go.
So the people of Hong Kong, there were certainly a lot of people in Hong Kong that did not want to be a part of the Chinese state. But overall, if you look at the situation in Hong Kong right now, it's like they claimed that it was going to be devastating, and that has not happened.
Not that we know of, because they have no freedom of speech anymore.
Okay.
They can't talk. They lost
that
the
part
right.
is true. You're right.
What are we going to learn from them?
I will not.
They have secret prisons, bro.
I do not agree with China's social or civil liberties policies. I do not agree with that at all.
Pause.
So I don't live in China.
Okay.
Okay. I might be seeing ghosts. Okay. I might be seeing ghosts. But I feel like the only reason Hasan is being forced to be slightly more reasonable here on China is because Ethan is asking the right questions. For instance, earlier, Ethan said, well, what about Hong Kong? And instead of Hasan volunteering answers about Hong Kong, Hasan immediately started asking, well, what do you mean? What do you mean by that? What do you mean? He's asking Ethan, like, it feels like he's mining Ethan for information about what he knows about Hong Kong. Now, you might say, well, Destiny, you're being conspiratorial, blah, blah, blah. But Hasan also just said, well, people thought the Hong Kong situation was going to be horrible. And look, nothing happened. And then he was like, hold on, what do you mean nothing happened? Their freedom of speech is curtailed. We can't see any information. And now Hasan is backed into a far more reasonable position. Like, okay, I don't support what's going on, that there's human rights abuses, sure. But I feel like every time Ethan asks a question, Hasan goes from what you would say nuanced, and I would say he's intentionally living in the fog of war to not have to declare a strong position, that as Ethan asks him more questions, he's forced to chisel out a more uncomfortable position for him to hold.
So, again, this is maybe one of 2 times I've ever seen Hasan comment on China. So maybe you've seen him make comments that I haven't seen before or something. The only other time that I saw him commenting on China was him criticizing begrudgingly, really quite reluctantly, China's civil liberties policies, just the way that we saw them, where he was talking about how I will admit China does get these things wrong, which does suggest that he's like softer in some support of China or something like that. To what extent, I can't say. Again, I came here to talk about. I saw people saying that Hasan was saying certain things in this video that he was not saying. Now, did I get the impression from this video that Hasan was softer on China than I am, or that I would expect you to be, or that I would like Hasan to be? Yeah, of course. That's to be expected. But again, I'm just here fighting the notion that he, said things that I don't think he said.
Okay.
And you're saying that he's like being forced concessions under duress because, and that reveals his true feelings. About
Absolutely.
Things
Easily, yes.
Like
yeah.
Sure. I think it does reveal his true feelings about things, but I think he's being honest when he says, I don't like their civil liberties policies. I think he's being honest when he says that he would respect the will of the Taiwanese people and that their will to, for sovereignty ought to be respected, because that's consistent for him, right?
I don't know if that's consistent for him.
Well, it's consistent with his take on Crimea.
Right? I think that after he was bullied into it. I think if you were to drill into his brain in front, I think he'd say, well, yeah, what China does is bad, but America does bad things too. I think that would be his position.
Probably, yeah. I think you're right. And again, no, not after he was bullied into it. His position from the start on Crimea is that they freely elected to be part of the Russian government. He thinks those elections were legitimate. That's where I disagree with him, right?
And he made the argument they were all ethnically Russian anyway.
I'm not sure if he's saying because they're ethnically Russian, therefore they should be a part of Russia, or if he's saying that's the reason that there's political will in the first place for them to reabsorb.
Sounds like he was giving it as justification for Russia to be able to seize it, but I don't know. Okay, I'm at 57.25.
Okay, so what you just said is like a really strong claim into like Hasan's beliefs.
Yep.
That actually seem pretty counter to like what he says otherwise about race and ethnicity and stuff, and about like.
Oh, sure. He doesn't have, but it's because his position is defined by America bad, and America's enemies equal generally good, or the same.
You're ascribing that he has this particular position of like that nation states should be, and Anna came in here and said this pretty explicitly as well, that he's an ethnostater. He believes that states should be comprised.
I don't think that's what she was saying. She's saying it's strange that Hasan is making ethno-state arguments. I think that Anna's position, if I understood it correctly, and this is my position, is that Hasan is making these arguments because it's America bad. So he'll make like ethnocentric. I think she literally called
him an ethnostater.
I could be, but I think her point was that I could be wrong. Anna might be retarded. Okay, I'm not here to vouch for her not being a retard. If Anna legitimately thinks that Hasan is an ethno-stater, then I would say Anna's probably retarded. But I don't think she thinks that. I think what she's remarking is that it's strange that he's supposedly a lefty or whatever, and he's making ethno-state arguments. I think that was her issue.
Yeah, so that's why I'm saying I would be really surprised if he was making the argument that because people in Crimea are ethnically Russian, therefore Russia has the moral license to invade them. From the start, I thought his argument was the people there want to be part of Russia and they elected to be so.
Sure, but the problem is he's giving the Russian or the Chinese propaganda arguments for why that ought to be. Or at least he's just presenting them as is, and as you're saying, he's quote unquote technically correct, but the implication is that he's supporting those arguments by giving them.
I wouldn't say he's technically correct that Crimea voted to be part of Russia.
Well, no, no, he is No, I mean, it depends how you define technically correct. Like, that's what the vote said. It might have been done under duress. It might have been done with the little green men. It might have been, like, that's who ended up voting, but...
No, there's a disagreement over whether or not an election was legitimate. Same as I wouldn't say it's technically correct that Trump won the 2020 election or something, right? Like.
True, but I feel like that's a bit more obviously wrong, but okay. 57.25, I'm ready when you are.
Okay.
Ready?
Yep.
3, 2, 1... break.
Live in America. However, having said that, you can just go to Hong Kong and you can just go to every part of China pretty much and see for yourself. This is no longer like the North Korea style hermit kingdom where like no information comes out. Like we have
regardless,
we have a shit ton of Chinese people that live in America. And
regardless, bro, it's not that they had rights. They don't have rights now. They lost a lot of rights. But whatever. I mean, you're. This is interesting that you're very soft. You're very soft-footed around the issue of China.
Okay.
You love China.
I think China.
If you love China so much, why don't you marry it?
Once again, I don't live there. I choose to live here because of the issues that you just brought up, which is civil liberties being.
Pause. I live here. I don't live there because of the issues you brought up. Like, what is this answer? I'm at 5821.
He's saying that he prefers America because he's criticizing the Chinese government for removing or otherwise lacking civil liberties.
Okay.
What's your read?
I don't. I feel like we're gonna loop hard.
Okay, well, go ahead. Tell me.
It's such an obvious like opportunity to critique China, but he avoids doing so at every turn.
And he said because they lack civil liberties. It's a criticism.
No. A criticism would have been, I condemn China for their lack of civil liberties. He reframed it as, well, I like to live in the U.S. because we have different rules than them.
It sounds like he wants to praise some aspects of China or something like that.
Or it just sounds like he's scared of criticizing them.
Yeah, that could be.
But that's my whole point.
Listen. That was never the contention. I never wanted to argue that with you because I agree with you. I think he is, like, part of the reason he's being soft on China is, like, for the benefit of his audience or something like that. Or at least I think that's a reasonable suspicion.
Wait, wasn't that my whole argument earlier that you said was an unfair or insane read? I thought that was my whole point.
No. I just don't think we had gotten that just yet. But, like, now we're getting into it. Now that he's talking about mainland China proper. Earlier we were talking about whether or not you thought he believed China should reabsorb, or because of historical or ethnic claims, China should reabsorb Taiwan.
No, I think what Hasan's actual belief is he just doesn't want the U.S. to meddle in anything because Iraq, Afghanistan, Guantanamo, capitalism. That would be his whole position. That's what he would say.
It could be. I haven't heard enough that I'd be confident to say I think you're 100%
I'm pretty
right
confident because he literally said that our State Department and all of our intelligence's hatred of China is just based on xenophobia.
I don't think he said all either. I think he said it could be like a lot of this rhetoric could be driven by xenophobia coming from the State Department, something or the. I don't remember his exact phrasing, but the read I got was that I think he thinks that the rhetoric surrounding China or the news we get about China paints China in a worse light than it deserves.
He's not talking about the news or the average citizen. He's saying that he said the State Department, he said our intelligence agencies and State Department have this anti-Chinese position because of xenophobia. Yes. That's what he said.
Well, again, like there's distinction to be made of because of xenophobia or it's xenophobic or something like that, right? In effect, like, and his understanding of xenophobic could just mean like we're promoting an adversarial nature just to keep us on our toes or something like that. Our State Department or something. I don't know the extent of that. Like, and again, that's why I brought up earlier, maybe he understands xenophobic literally to just mean we're positioning ourselves to be in like a strategic advantage over China. While also,
if someone is saying xenophobia, every time what they mean is an unjustified xenophobic hatred of China. That's what xenophobia means. If anybody's using it in a modern context. Am I wrong?
And maybe he thinks that part of that is unjustified. That's why I said maybe he believes...
Not part of it. Hold on. If somebody says somebody's being racist, nobody's like, oh, well, hold on, whoa. When he says racist, he just means that certain ethnic groups tend towards certain things, so we should have like different security policies.
No, that's exactly what some people mean. Like if somebody says he doesn't like going to that part of town, just, or he doesn't want to live there just because kind of racism, it doesn't mean that somebody has a bespoke fucking, like explicit position that he's racially superior and I won't go there because of yada yada. It can be like subtle inhibitions that an individual may not even be aware of or want to identify themselves or something like that.
I think normatively, racism is always bad. Nobody would ever say that, like, I really enjoy some racist policies by college, like affirmative action.
I disagree that Hasan is subtly implying, or unsubtly, however unsubtly, implying that the State Department's rhetoric about China is in some capacity not justified.
It's... No, xenophobia. I don't believe anybody would use xenophobia as justified. Am I wrong on that? Have you heard somebody?
We don't disagree.
Okay, so when he says that our State Department
and our intelligence to have a negative tinge, yes,
it's purely negative. They're xenophobic.
I don't know the extent. Like, I don't know that he said it's purely xenophobia, or maybe he did. I didn't get the exact wording when we went back. We can go back and try and find the exact. In fact, I could probably just.
That's transcript. Okay. Don't worry about it. No, we don't need to. It's okay. Because he doesn't give a number. He just says it's driven by this. And I think
Well, I don't even know if he says it's driven by, right?
Okay, if you want, you can go find the exact quote then. Go for it. I'll wait.
I don't know if he's like, again, I don't know if he's saying that all of this rhetoric around China from the State Department is completely unjustified, or you know, like we're saber rattling, right? Or we're provoking China a little bit or something like that, or we're doing this thing to maintain a strategic advantage over China, and he understands that to be xenophobia or something like that, or some of the negative press about China is overblown.
Sure, I think it's literally just America bad. I think that's what he understands when he talks about this. But that's
I think that's what he's trying to signal to his audience. Yes.
Okay. Ready?
Yep.
Okay, I'm at 58.
Hold on.
What?
Before we go there, like, I don't even think his calculation is that America is wholly bad. When you say America bad, like, he's literally saying, we just heard him say, I live here, I don't live there, because they don't have civil liberties, implying that we have civil liberties here that he likes and appreciates and supports, right? So, like, I agree that his rhetoric and his audience likes to hear where America bad, but I don't even think it's his position that America is the most evil, like, whatever.
No, but I think his foreign policy is generally defined as America bad.
Yeah, I think that's the perspective. I think that's the angle he approaches it from. Yeah.
Okay. Ready?
Yep.
Okay, 58-21, ready?
I'm at 58-23, so just go ahead and go, and I'll wait 2 seconds.
Take it away.
1 second.
No.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, go.
Freedom of speech, walled garden internet. Like, there are certainly parallels to the American state or the Western world that there are certainly comparisons that you could make.
Pause. Really?
Mm-hmm.
Are there?
There are comparisons you could make to the Western world. Is he talking about criticisms you could make about both places?
He named the fact that China has a great firewall to block out their things, that they curtail certain civil liberties. Do you think there are valid comparisons to draw between Chinese treatment of its citizens and American treatment of its citizens?
Yeah, if I had to guess, he would go to the police or something, right? Like,
do you think it's... Yeah, because... So he said that, like, well, I live in America. Notice how he instantly kind of, like, tries to half-walk that back, saying, well, you know, sometimes America...
I'm not going to fight you on this. I agree with you.
Okay. All right. I'm at...
And 50, for the record, the comparison between American police and Chinese police is absolutely ludicrous.
Okay. I'm at 58-36. Where are you at?
Yeah, I'm there. Go ahead.
Okay. 3, 2, 1, go.
But overall, that kind of mechanism of control is one that I do not appreciate personally, which is why I choose to live here.
Pause. I'm sorry, 58-46.
Okay.
Do you see how much it weakens the conviction of his statements when he's like, personally, I don't enjoy the Chinese secret police over the United States. Personally. Do you see that, like, defangs his statement entirely as a legitimate criticism of another country?
Yes.
Okay. All right, I'm at 58.
Listen,
46, yeah.
I agree with that. I don't know if you were here when I said that whole rant to Anna. Like, I hate the guy. I hate his like, analysis of foreign policy.
Okay. I'm at 58-46. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go.
But as far as like cruelty, oppression, like what you're talking about with respect to Hong Kong, the promises that Western media overall made about like how China was going to crush Hong Kong under its like ruthless, oppressive thumb has not happened.
I don't think that was the point. I think the point was just that there's whoever was, you know, vocal about wanting to maintain certain rights in Hong Kong was probably thrown in a secret prison and never heard from again.
I mean, certainly there was political dissidents are definitely
not the
political
best.
Dissidents are definitely like
taken out back.
They're not killed or anything, but even then it's like completely
They take a
unacceptable.
walk and and they go for a beer and they don't come back. You know what I'm saying?
they're not good on that stuff. 100%.
But well, anyway, I was just curious. I didn't mean to open a can of worms, but you say you think the people of Taiwan whatever they want, and it seems to me that the people of Taiwan want independence. So I'm right with you there, brother. Independence for Taiwan.
I think one nation, two systems.
One nation, two systems.
Pause. 59-54. Okay. I'm so excited to hear you explain that.
I think he thinks that's the official fucking position of the U.S., not knowing that that's, again, it's not.
Wait, no, but Ethan is talking about what he wants right now.
Yeah, I think he's talking about the status quo in calling it one nation, two systems.
And you think Hasan wants the current unease? I thought he wanted whatever Taiwan voted for and what Taiwan would probably want for themselves.
I don't know what to say. That's a conversation you'd have to have with Hasan.
Okay.
Like, it makes it hard because he described our official policy regarding Taiwan and China as one nation, two systems, which is wrong. Like, he's incorrectly naming the one China policy from the U.S. side, and now he's calling back to it by the same name. I'm not sure if he's talking about I think it should be under the PRC or we should keep the status quo.
Okay.
It's certainly a gaffe.
Okay, I don't think it's a gaffe at all. I think he's communicating pretty well, like what he wants. But
well, again, it's unclear because he referred to the official U.S. policy, which is the support of the current status quo, as one nation, two systems, which is what he's calling this now. It's unsure if he's referring to this, like preserving the status quo, or if he's like talking about a change in governance.
Okay. Are you ready?
Yep. This is, I think, the furthest that I watched because they start talking about Ukraine.
Okay. We'll see a little bit more then. Ready?
Okay.
3,
Yep.
2, 1, go.
Systems?
Yeah. Which is the current...
Like Israel and Palestine?
Oh my God. You don't want to go down that rabbit hole. Come on.
I'm just fucking with you. I'm just trying to get you.
That part is like literally, I mean, that's a advocacy in the opposite direction, in my opinion, where
independence for Taiwan. You heard it here from Hasan.
Because remember, like the overwhelming majority of people living in Taiwan are still Han Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, despite the fact that it's a separate country, it's still like the same people. The language is the same. People will say
Ukraine belongs to Russia for that exact reason.
I don't think Ukraine belongs to Russia because Ukrainian nation state, the Ukrainian nation state project, there are similarities. You're not wrong about that. But the Ukrainian nation state project as a well-defined nation state has always has been around for much longer than like Taiwan being an independent nation state.
So the people's entitlement to freedom.
Like you can make a better argument for Crimea being a separate country than like.
But what I'm hearing is that it's just a function of how old their culture is.
Pause for a second. And then I'm sorry. How long has Taiwan been in its current position?
1950s.
So what does Hasan mean there?
So
that Ukraine was a separate nation state longer than Taiwan was, because
maybe
it wasn't.
previous
Didn't
to the
Ukraine?
Soviet Union.
Is that what we're talking about now?
I have no fucking idea. I have no fucking idea what he's talking about. And the charitable reading is that I mentioned this earlier when Anna was in here. Like the political will towards maintaining the status quo would be to keep some relations open between Taiwan and China, because people do like. If you talk to Taiwanese people, like sometimes they'll begrudgingly describe themselves as Chinese because they'll have to know that they have to caveat, but we don't like the mainland, we don't like the PRC or something like that, but our heritage is that of China, right? Like the kinship they feel with the China that existed pre-PRC still exists among Taiwanese people, less and less with each passing generation. But so like any will to reintegrate, and by the way, if you read polling on reintegration with China, it's complex and it's made difficult by the fact that like you have to delineate based on under like ideal auspices or under the current auspices. Obviously, the will to reintegrate with China under the current auspices of being governed by the PRC are very low, but overall, like combined between all the different caveats you can have, the will for some reintegration is actually pretty high. I think it's like as high as maybe 30 or 40% or something like that, if not maybe more. But like there is some sort of like
is
lasting
that 30
will.
or 40%? Again, I'm just guessing without knowing anything about the specifics. Is that 30 or 40% caveated that Taiwan can still operate like semi-autonomously, or is that
yes.
for
the majority
that's
of
a pretty
yes.
okay, yeah, that's a pretty big caveat, but okay.
Yeah, well, they haven't really even talked about that yet.
Okay.
But yeah, and it may be higher. Like I would have to look at this. Depending on how you measure this, it can be like I think it could even a rise to the majority. Like if you ask people under the most ideal circumstances, would you like Taiwan to reintegrate with China? I think like even a majority might answer yes, because they're literally like maybe even thinking that, you know, that the PRC crumbles or something like that. But yeah, it's difficult. And I think the most charitable reading of what the fuck Hasan is talking about here is basically just describing that this is a relevant point in Taiwanese politics. The fact that there is like a lingering Chinese identity.
Okay. You got a lot out of that, but from him, but okay. Okay, I'm at 101.24.
Mm-hmm.
Is that okay? 3, 2, 1, go.
Stop.
Entitled Heir to Freedom.
What?
Real quick.
Yeah.
I don't know how much Hasan knows about this.
Okay, because
right?
you said multiple times that it sounded like he read into. I don't know what you meant by that statement.
Mm-hmm. So it does sound like he's familiar.
Okay.
More familiar than the average person.
Wait. Okay, now, might just be my bias, okay? But does familiar with, and I'm familiar with Taiwan, China. What do you mean by familiar and read into? Those feel like two very different expressions to me.
Okay.
Do you use them similarly?
It feels like he has done maybe more than a cursory, like, it seems like he knows about, like, offhand, off the top of his head.
I agree with this.
Knows,
yeah.
He knows about Taiwanese, like, polling, right?
Well,
like recent Taiwanese polling about like how they like to claim, you know, keeping the status quo versus independence versus, you know, reintegrating with China or something like that.
Okay,
like,
I don't know about
like
that, but maybe.
Well, it came up earlier, remember? When,
sure,
when Dan
but he could know
Dan.
about that polling because a lot of this polling, depending on how you read it, plays into really good tanky talking points. Like, for instance, if somebody tells me, did you know that a lot of older people in Soviet satellite states, actually, when you poll them, they have more favorable feelings towards the Soviet Union than not? Now, when I hear that, my impression would be, oh, wow, this guy is really well researched into like opinions of ex-Soviet.
Wait, did I say he's really well researched?
When I hear read into, that sounds like it's implying a level of research, yeah. But that's maybe we just use those.
Maybe he has done some cursory research. And the term I would use
but what I'm saying,
read into this a little bit.
But what I'm saying is that when I hear that, that just sounds like a tanky talking point. It doesn't sound like any research at all. Same as when somebody says, if somebody were to say, like, did you know that black people have a gene that codes for aggression more than white people? I would never think, wow, this guy's done some research into genetics. I would think, oh, this guy's probably listened to some like race realist podcast. That's what I would assume.
Okay, I understand. But again, like the fact that he knows about the TRA, he knows about strategic ambiguity, he knows about the one China policy, he knows about the return of Hong Kong to China, you know, he knows about the recent polling about Taiwanese political will. He knows about the history of the Nationalist Party fleeing to Taiwan and then eventually democratizing. Like, these are...
Wait, sure, so that's fair what you're saying. But now you're going... But it sounds like you... It sounds like I said... When you said read into him, he knows quite a bit.
What percentage of Americans do you think would know about all these things? Off the top of your head.
About everything that Hasan's brought up so far?
Yes,
if I had to
all the things
guess,
I just mentioned.
I would say probably like 5 to 8% would be my guess.
I think that's an extremely high estimate.
Well, the only reason I'm saying 5 to 8% is because there's probably older people that might remember some of these things because they were more relevant. My guess is, like, this is a total guess, and I don't know if this is true, but my guess is going to be like in the era of, say, like the Vietnam War. We were probably a lot more interested in stuff happening in that region of the world, so more people would have known about China and Taiwan. That'd be my guess, and Hong Kong. Okay. That'd be my guess, but I could be wrong, but that'd be right.
Did you know about all these things before this conversation?
Before this conversation, I'd heard... I don't know. I feel like I know probably about 90% of what Hasan is talking about from before this conversation, but only because I've looked up things cursory to Taiwan because a lot of people are starting to bring it up in relation to the United States and our activities in Ukraine. And I think I might have to prepare in future debates for Taiwan to come up because a lot of people have made the claim that one of the important reasons for defending Ukraine is that it shows the U.S. commitment to defending people such as Taiwan. And that's an argument that's been coming up a lot.
Mm-hmm. So you he named Chiang Kai-shek.
Okay.
Right.
But again, I don't know if that's impressive and that he's read into it, or I don't know. Like, that'd be like saying...
I don't know either.
No. Okay,
again,
sure. Hold on. No, but I would make assumptions. When somebody says Pinochet or whatever, I'm not thinking like, oh my God, this guy knows a lot about South American history. I would think that like, oh...
And I don't think that about
tanky.
Hasan.
Okay. Gotcha.
I don't think that about Hasan with China. My expectations are extremely low about people knowing anything about our relations with Taiwan, China, and the history between those two specifically, right?
Okay.
So again, my expectations are very, very low. So hopefully you can understand why when I hear somebody talk, I can at least identify, okay, this person knows a little something about this. Now, obviously, when he calls the KMT like counter-revolutionaries, like motherfucker, like the Nationalist Party was the party in control of China at that point. Those aren't counter-revolutionaries. That was the legitimate.
Which goes to feed into
whatever.
my point that he probably doesn't actually know much about any of this. He's literally just giving the tanky talking points.
Or that he's read it from a certain spin or something like that.
Sure.
Right?
Much the same that like I wouldn't give Nick Fuentes an ounce of reading into Nazi Germany's history, an ounce of reading into genetics, an ounce of I don't give him any credit for that. I think he just reads like paste spins from Nazis. But I would never use the phrase like, I think Fuentes has actually read into a lot of like World War II history. I don't think he has. I don't think Fuentes has read into,
So I guess here's what I would ask. You know that after like a long period of debates with the guy. And the most recent one, the impression that I got is after the most recent Fresh and Fit debate that you guys did, it seemed like you were disillusioned with the fact that, oh my God, this guy knew a lot less than I assumed he did. Okay. So I'm still at the part where you would have been at with Nick Fuentes, where you probably would have assumed that he had done even maybe a little bit of cursory research because he sounds like he is, and so invested in the topic that he has to have
that he
done
would
something.
have. Yeah, sure. That was my assumption initially, yeah.
So,
Okay.
it could be the case that Hasan has only read the copy pastas and is just, gleaning whatever. But I think he has read some theory. It does seem like he's invested enough into the topic that he has done some actual reading on this stuff. So I wouldn't be super surprised if he did some reading and then applied his worldview to it, right? But again, I'm just giving him a little credit that he's able to name these things. He knows when they happen. He knows the players or something like that, which is more. This isn't just him applying his America bad on the most like surface level thing.
Well, if all of his talking points just came from commie or tanky propaganda, it is literally just America bad.
Yeah.
And by you saying that you're upset that he called those one people counter-revolutionaries, fascists or whatever, if he was actually reading into it, it sounds like what you're saying is he wouldn't have that opinion.
You remember my comments when I first entered this call?
Your comments were that Hasan was correct in a lot of what he was saying and that chat was being too critical of him.
But I think I also mentioned, I either mentioned this or in the Reddit, there was a Reddit thread and I posted in there where I was just like, oh, I watched this and it wasn't so bad. He mostly sticks to his America bad talking points. He could stand to learn a lot more about like Taiwan post Chen Shui-Bing, which is the first DPP candidate that won in the 90s.
Okay, but I don't think anybody's criticisms of Hasan were just that he was factually incorrect. I think that the reason why people were upset was because it seemed like he was simping for China, and Ethan, similar to what's happened with Ukraine, had to drag him kicking and screaming into a position where he was like, okay, maybe China bad, maybe support Taiwan.
Okay, the only reason I bring that up is because I feel like I came in here, maybe I mentioned this when I came in here or not, but I think I did mention this when I came in here, that obviously my biggest problem with him talking about this was his like America bad spin. So there's no disagreement there.
Okay, wait, then what do you think our initial disagreement was? Or where do you think our disagreement lies then?
Okay, so we had a couple disagreements come up.
Well, no, like our primary, or you can say, 2 or 3. What do you think are our big disagreements about this?
So my disagreements, I didn't have many disagreements with you because again, my first comments when I first came into this call, have you been taking finasteride by chance? Sorry. My first comments when I came into this call.
Any of us here are finaster brained, okay? It's not me, but go ahead.
Okay, well, let's get to this because I remember when I first came in here, I said I saw your video on it and you didn't have much to say about Taiwan.
True.
So we couldn't have had many disagreements on his coverage of Taiwan, right? And then I directed it towards your Reddit, your subreddit, and I said I saw people saying or having a lot of these criticisms that I don't think were reflected in what Hasan said.
Huh. Okay.
I don't know if you remember that.
Okay.
Okay. Well.
Okay.
Anything else, buddy?
Let's watch like a minute more. Let's watch a minute more. Okay.
Okay.
I'm at 101.25. Let me know when you're ready. Okay.
Got it.
3, 2, 1, boom.
It's not. I don't think that it's like those two concepts are not the two concepts at play here. Like it's not like entitled to freedom versus what was the other thing that you said?
Well, it just seems like you're talking about like their they have some kind of national heritage or identity.
Well, the thing that I was mentioning there, the reason why I mentioned that is because you were talking about making a comparison between like Israel Palestine, being the same people. I think makes that kind of, especially existing under the construct of having like one nation state regardless, with freedom of travel in between. It's literally like a mile off the coast, you know what I mean, of China. Having all of that factors into like whether there's going to be assimilation or not. And there is no need for assimilation even. They have like normal trade relations with Taiwan, you know what I mean? It's like, that's why it's considered to be a delicate political conversation, but one that currently the current system benefits both.
And so if
places.
China takes military action against Taiwan, as some people speculate may happen.
Yeah, I mean...
Pause.
Okay.
So just at 102.50. So Ethan asking this question,
yes.
I feel like this was the question that he was asking all along. It's taken us a while to get there, but I feel like this was the question that he really wanted to know the answer to at the very beginning. Not, why would you ask somebody...
Why did it take him so long to ask it?
Well, because I think the question of like, do you support a people getting to vote on a thing and having that vote respected is not a very interesting question, or a question that most people would ask.
I mean, he went to Hong Kong before he got here.
Okay, sure. I'm just saying I feel like that was, but, you know, all right. Okay, ready?
Mm-hmm.
3, 2, 1, boom.
That would not be good. I don't think that would be good. I think that would be really, really terrifying. It would be disruptive for the entire global economy as well.
Right, but I'm just mean like from... Whose army are you joining? Whose front line are you fighting?
I'm fucking moving to...
Taiwan?
I'm moving to an undisclosed location. I'm moving to an undisclosed location.
I'm on the front.
I'm gonna be on a fucking ship.
Whoever has
streaming.
the best computer chips, I'm fighting for.
Okay.
I'm a chip boy myself.
If it wasn't for America, China would have some pretty solid chip technology, but America's like regularly trying to stop that process. Like they went to the Netherlands to be like, you can't sell China.
What?
I said, oh, brother.
Pause. So, how do you feel about this telling of the Netherlands not signing or selling chips to China? Do you feel like that's...
Yeah, I don't know. This is pretty standard fare, just America bad, right? Like, reframe everything as if it's just America bad. And also, listen, I'll grant you, he avoided the question.
Yep.
Of if it came down to a military conflict. Unfortunately, Ethan didn't say, should America intervene? He said, which army are you joining? And
Sure.
Hasan said, I'm a little bitch.
Okay. Okay. I'll axe. We'll axe this video.
Sounds good.
Wait, did he just leave? That was so brutal.
What I do? I just leave.
Well, you were just saying, like, you could
we've
say
been on call
goodnight.
for like 5 hours. Okay, good night. I love you.
Love you. Bye.